It's 4 o'clock. I'm going to call the November 13th, 2023 EIC meeting to order. I'm going to ask Council Member and Board Member Joe Herring to lead us in invocation, please.
Y'all join me in prayer. You don't have to stand up. Lord, thank you for letting us be here together. Thank you for the rain. Thank you for this community we call home. And thank you for all of those here who want to make our community a better place. In Jesus' holy name I pray. Amen.
Before we go into item 3, a couple of housekeeping items. If you are signed up to speak, you will have 3 minutes to do so, and we have a different chamber arrangement. So you will come to this microphone right here to address the EIC. And if you have a specific item that you want to speak on, make sure that you're signed up before that item is called. If you are signed up to speak for Visitors and Citizens Forum, please make sure that your item is not on the agenda. So Visitors Citizens Forum is for miscellaneous items that aren't on the agenda. And so with that, item number 3, I'm going to have to get used to where to look. Takesha, do we have any speakers signed up?
We have Greg Richards.
Greg Richards, 501 Earl Garrett. I've got 2 things to speak on, but I think one, if I'm understanding the protocol here, the first one is on something that's in the executive session. Is that okay to talk about that now, since obviously I won't be here for that? So you guys obviously have a lot to weigh in on today, lots of great projects, and if there was an unlimited amount of EIC funds, it'd be great to be able to fund all of these. I just want to renew my plug for workforce housing in this community. It's something we've been talking about for a long, long time. I've seen projects, both ones that have a public component to them, as well as private ones, not pass and not go forward for one of a handful of reasons. And there's a great opportunity, I believe, with Lennar, who already has a good presence here, already deep into their project over on the Loop, and looking to expand it. And I think as you've got lots of requests for funds and a limited amount of funds to fund those requests, I would just really encourage you again to look at the housing situation in the community. It has not been resolved. There have been some projects that have come online that are beginning to make a dent in that need, but there's still a tremendous amount of work to be done. And I continue to hear from both friends and clients who are employers that it is a problem that they face on a consistent basis. And I especially have heard this recently from the hospital, that their ability to recruit people and bring people in is hampered significantly by the fact that we don't have available housing. So I'll save my other comments for the public hearing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Keisha, that was only?
That's all we have.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move on to item number 4, approval of the minutes. You've had a chance to review the minutes. Are there any changes? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve, please?
Motion to approve is presented.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, please raise your hand. And item number 5, monthly reports. Gil?
Madam Chair, members of the board. I think I almost needed a color-coded map when I walked in only.
I know.
Thrown off a little bit. Okay, Madam Chair, members of the board, today's report I want to focus on the airport area, some of the activity we've been seeing out there as it pertains to industry. Starting with Killdeer, I mean, they've officially moved into their facility last month, I believe, and that's across from the airport. And I will say, I mean, it is, I drove by a couple of times now in the last few weeks, and was an economic developer, right? Kind of like economic development nerd. It is very fulfilling to see, satisfying to see. You drive by and you see the parking lot almost full of cars, from people from Kerrville that are working at this new facility project that was supported by the community, our leadership, by you all. So again, they're doing everything that they said they were going to do and more. They're continuing to hire and train some of their new employees, breaking in that new facility. They are adding now a growing presence of companies that are moving out in the airport area. Project Saddle, I'll be covering that one here later on today. Project Fuselage, which we talked about last month. Project 1954, Project Presidio, 2 other projects that have yet to be named. So now we're looking at about 500 plus jobs, $80 to $90 million in capital investment with these different projects that we have combined. It'll increase the revenues for tax coffers as well as the GDP for the area. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to get all of these projects, but if we're just able to get a fraction of these, it puts us in a very good position and ahead of the game for a community our size. Now, taking a step back and looking at what's come here in the last 3 years as far as the airport, we've got the Gulf Avionics, RBR Aviation, Aero Parts and Supply, Rise Helicopter, and then just last week, Schreiner University announced their aviation school, talking of which, we attended the first meeting for the Aviation Advisory Council. We're part of that. That was a few weeks ago. And again, just helping them with the strategy as far as growing that particular program and making sure that the Kerrville is front and center for that degree that they have planned out. One of the things that really stood out, they said there's 6,000 pilots that are needed every year in the industry. That's just in the U.S. alone. That's not worldwide. Kind of wish that was around when I was a kid. You know? If somebody told me, hey, you can go do this, do that, and be a pilot, I mean, I'd be on board, but that was not the case. So students now from Kerrville can get a 4-year degree and get a pilot's license with an inside track to becoming a commercial airline pilot. And those are, last I checked, and it's the number's probably off, but commercial airline pilots, at least, with the ones that are vested, are between $500,000 and $7,000 in annual salary. So that's definitely something we want to have for our local talent. And I commend Schreiner University, Dr. McCormick, Mary and her airport board for having the vision and putting themselves out there to make this happen. Talking about the airport board, we met with them a couple of weeks ago. They wanted to know some of the things that we're working on as far as the KDC, some of the projects that we have in play, especially some of those ones that we're talking about today. We're in there for about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. Project Mount Saddle was one of them, Fuselage. And really, we're just kind of talking about those synergies that are out there that play with the airport, making sure that they have the information. It's a two-way street, and that they also have a voice in a lot of stuff that we're looking at right now. Because as far as leads, there's a lot of aerospace and aviation leads that are coming into the state of Texas. So we're doing what we can to capture some of that. And we heard them loud and clear, that they've got hangars. They want to construct some more hangars, and they need some more prospects out there. So great working relationship with them. And again, that's just that's within the airport, then outside of the airport, a lot of different things that are happening. And I think that'll dovetail into what we'll be talking about later today. With that, I'll turn it over to Katie, and we'll be happy to answer any questions y'all might have.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thank you. I'd like to keep my presentation today brief because we were able to get the video that we attempted to show last time whitelisted, so I want to save some time so y'all can view that. But the updates that I'd like to share today, we have been testing the virtual business incubator with 3 small business beta testers, and we've also been collaborating with a consultant on how to leverage something called entrepreneurship-led economic development. In terms of childcare, the CROC informs us that we expect to receive the results of their community assessment that they were working on with their consultant at the end of November. For projects, we received a request for assistance to open a wine tasting room in Ingram. We also received a request for an assistance to open a 100-room hotel within the city limits. We also facilitated a conference call with the Kerrville Airport Board and business owner on Rural Air Mobility Project. A few other projects that came up near year end. We've been working closely with the KEDC board president and our board on our 24-25 strategic plan. We look forward to unveiling that for y'all soon. We had the opportunity to attend the Music-Friendly Texas certification ceremony to celebrate Kerrville becoming designated as a music-friendly community from the Office of the Governor. We thought that was an amazing distinction that we're real proud of. We facilitated some leadership combos on behalf of the Kerrville Lead podcast as part of their Leadership Week for women business leaders and nonprofit leadership. We were able to attend the Schreiner Aviation ribbon cutting, which was a really amazing event. And we actually are working on an application and a public posting for a new board member that is open and available. So that concludes my brief report, and if we can hit play on this video that I can see on my screen, but I can't see on your screen yet. Oh, there we go. Do we have the ability to turn the volume up?
Gilberto Salinas, and I'm the Executive Director of the Kerr Economic Development Corporation. We came together shortly after COVID, a few months after COVID, and started having a roundtable discussion. It's like, okay, here's where we're at. We have no idea what's going to happen down the road. Who's being affected? Who's got, what are the challenges? What are the needs? And what are some opportunities? We started involving education as well as our workforce entities. And then higher education. So we're fortunate enough that in our community, we have, education, 3 school districts, then also a community college and a university. So it's kind of like the trifecta as it pertains to industry. There's tangible results that have come out of this group. One of them is, again, the partnership that we've seen through Ingram ISD, especially with some of the PTech program, the JET grant that they received from the Texas Workforce Commission.
I'm Justin Crittenden. I'm the principal of Tom Moore High School in Ingram, Texas. For us, because of the PTech initiative, originally we noticed that our kids, and I use a little analogy that a high school diploma is like an airplane ticket, right? So you get that ticket, you go get on the airplane, and then you use that ticket. But what we started noticing was we given our kids high quality airline ticket, and they were sitting on the tarmac. So we thought, how can we take that to the next level? So that's what we're trying to do. We go to these partners, we go to business and industry, and we ask them, what do you need? And how can we help you? And what can we do for our kids to get them prepared when they leave us to be a good industry, be good workers for you? So that's what we've done.
I'm Dr. Mindy Curran. I am the Assistant Superintendent at Ingram ISD. So the roundtable provides us an opportunity to be a part of that critical communication because we're making programmatic decisions to educate kids on what things that we're going to offer, what career and technical education programs that we're going to offer to our students. Our students, they are here. They already have a place to live. So if we can make sure that we're training them, that we're providing the education that they need to meet that need of the business, then we're creating a thriving community. And then ultimately that student will no longer live in poverty. Right? So that's breaking that for that kid and their family. And then you do that for enough students, you've now made a change for the community, a lifelong, a generational long impact. So that's our vision.
The other one is a partnership from, one of our aerospace companies that we recruited here in the last 2 years, Kildare Mountain Manufacturing. And so now as a result of their involvement with our roundtable discussions, our quarterly roundtables, they're working now with Schreiner University, as well as with Kerrville ISD, the other school district, and to create that pipeline of talent. One is for operations, but then the other one's on the engineering side.
My name is Kristen Hedger. I'm with Kildare Mountain Manufacturing. We had a workforce need that was key. The demand from our customers in aerospace was surpassing what we could address with our 3 factories that we had operational in North Dakota. And Kerr EDC really worked with us to help identify how we can not only enhance our workforce talent pool from which to draw upon, but also to partner with local universities and independent school districts to help shape some of the training efforts that we've sought to benefit not just our workforce pool, but regionally in the Hill Country as well. We want to work together to do great things, and so far we've been succeeding to that end.
My name is Charlie McCormick. I'm the president of Schreiner University, and it's important to be with people that are trying to maximize the capacity of this community. So this is a rare opportunity for our students to get hands-on training in a real-life environment, a real workplace environment. So they're not just hearing about engineering, but they're actually with people who are doing that work.
My name is Katie Milton Jordan, and I am the Director of Business Development, Entrepreneurship, and Talent at the Kerr Economic Development Corporation. We were able to facilitate a connection between a local nonprofit, our Kroc Center Salvation Army, that serves childcare and working families with the Hill Country Community Foundation, who is a philanthropic organization. And the two of them came together, and we had thrown around some creative solutions about how to address, short-term childcare challenges and long-term childcare challenges.
Yeah, so I'm Captain Jeremiah Romack with the Salvation Army here in Kerrville. I oversee all of the Salvation Army operations, and I'm involved with the Kerrville Roundtables through the Child Care Task Force. So the Child Care Task Force is a group of people that just have come together through the Economic Development Committee to look at solutions to solve the child care crisis that we have in our community. We believe that the greatest investment you can make in your community is in your children, because that's the biggest ROI that you'll get on anything that you do, right? You want to talk about the issues of the world today, society in general, like what are we doing to invest in our kids to prepare them for a successful future?
I think that the roundtables have improved the resiliency in Kerrville in many ways, and one that comes to mind immediately is it's shortened the feedback loop between our community leaders. We now have very open lines of communication, and the lines of communication are also very frequent. And I believe that those are conducive to building and nurturing the relationships that need to be the foundation of any and all progress we're making in our community.
Happy to answer any questions.
That was great.
Thank you.
And we have a full house today, and so it's actually very timely. I think it's great for the community to see and hear everything that KEDC is doing to partner with existing businesses and work through issues that involve workforce. So thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments? That was a great video.
Very well done.
Thank you. That was by Ernst & Young, which is one of the big four firms really in the world. And we were picked, it was us, Rockport in the Corpus Christi area, McAllen, and Lubbock, Texas, as far as strategies and efforts during COVID for resiliency and sustainability of the local economy.
If it was produced by someone outside of Kerrville, so what are what are the implications for this video outside of Kerrville?
This is being shown at the national level. It's being they have a whole marketing campaign. This is Ernst & Young, as far as economic development organizations that other EDOs can look at as far as setting the bar, and again looking it through the lens of resiliency and sustainability of the local economy.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to item 5B. Oh, can I stop you just a second before you start?
Absolutely.
We have had some people come in late, so other than items that are marked as public hearing, which anyone has the opportunity to speak to, if you did come in late and didn't hear me announce it the first time, Keisha over here, if you want to sign up to speak on a specific item that is not a public hearing, before that item is called, you need to make sure you can walk your paper over to her so that she can make sure that you are on the list of speakers for that item. So, okay.
It's going to take a while to get used to being over here on this
That's
side.
weird.
It really is odd. So just to quickly go over the list of projects, Peterson, same update. Building is ongoing. They're doing inspections. They have med gas inspections. interior inspections going on all throughout. The Louise Hayes Fitness Court, the challenge we're having with that, and everybody who's here that's been out to the park can see there's some construction fencing around there, and that's there because we have a punch list of items that the installers have to complete, and we're waiting on them to get back. So it's looks like it's going to be early December before I get them back in town for them to complete that. So there's going to be some construction fencing around that. But once we get it done, it's a really cool workout facility that's going to be available. Downtown area streetscapes. I do believe we have some members from CUTS, Kerrville Urban Trail System here. So if y'all noticed, as a part of that project that you helped fund, K-Pub has completed their portion of it, and then in between us completing our part, CUTS went out there and did some painting. So you saw some folks out there painting. So now it looks, it's every time I see it, I'm always excited. So it looks really cool out there. And I know there were some concerns about the stop sign. I sit there in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening as I'm leaving, just watching, and haven't seen the backup there that caused any concern. So it looks like it's doing exactly what we wanted it to do. Downtown River Trail extensions. So Mr. Hewitt is in the process. He is actively surveying each one of those easements, so he's still working through that process. All of the owners have seen their draft of their easements, and so the last piece of that should be the surveys, and then we're done. It's been quite a road to get here. We have the Calhoun Theater improvements in here, and I'm not sure why. That's a discussion we're going to talk about later. Obviously, the HVAC and the roof systems are in need of some repair. And lastly, the Travis Pump Station upsizing. So we're negotiating with the engineers at this point, and once we finalize that, that'll be to council for their consideration. But we haven't quite finalized the price yet with the engineers. We're arguing back and forth a little bit.
Are we still within the?
Oh yeah, we're still within. The price has jumped enough since August of 22 that we all took a pause and said, well, we understand things have increased, but to what extent is that as much as they've talked about? And so we're really questioning a lot of that. So more to come.
So okay.
Inside the quote within what you see in the water and wastewater plan has 90,000 for the engineering in there, and they show that they came forward with 120. And that was August of 22 to now. So that's a substantial increase. And so we need them to clarify that. And so Stuart's been having some back and forth with their engineers about it. And with that, I will turn it back over. Any questions y'all might have?
Board, any questions, comments? Do we have anyone signed up to speak on that? And I think that it's a good example of a partnership, talking about the downtown streetscape that was partially funded by EIC. I believe the city partially funded, is that correct or no? And I know K-Pub provided services, and then CUTS, the Kerrville Urban Trail System, is responsible for funding and implementing that really nice visual that is on the road there. So if you haven't seen that, it's really nice. What about the lights for the downtown area that we're going to be strung?
So I think Mike and his team, so the entire effort from Clay getting over it was to put those utilities underground. So they finished with a certain portion of it, and I think they still have some punch list items left to go.
Right.
Can't be attached to the buildings and the parking garage. That was another kind of hiccup in that. Had to be detached. So it's going to have separate poles that will attach across.
All right. Thank you. Item 5C, monthly financial report. Ms. Trina or Julie?
So staff is gonna be housed back there, and then when they're needed, they'll come.
Oh, okay.
To hang out and talk, and hopefully it's never mic'd up back there.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone.
So we're gonna do a recap of fiscal year '23 first. We'll be really quick because we have a lot going on. So your revenues for the year came in at $5,445,000. Your sales tax landed at $5.08 million. Your budget was $5.262 million, so you came in a little bit short by $174,000. We had investment earnings totaling $313,000 for the year. That made up a little bit of the shortfall in sales tax. And then down onto your expenditures, you had $516,000 in expenses for the year. Majority of that was your City of Kerrville contract for $200,000, and then your KDC contract for $312,000. You had annual debt service at $1,085,000, and then your project contributions total $1.56 million. So you had a net change in position for the year of $2.27 million. All right, any questions on 23? I'll change it. Trying to get this to go. Might not be on yet. Okay, so October financials. All right, jumping right in. I'm going to go over real quick over your budget for fiscal year 24. Your sales tax budget is flat with fiscal year 23 budget of $5.262 million. For October, you brought in $465,000. That was a 5.3% increase over October of 22. We did see $99,000 in future period payments from multiple payers, but a lot of that was manufacturing that was up 30%, and then we had retail trade and public administration that had future period payments that came in. So for the month, you exceeded our budget estimate by $58,000 on sales tax. Next line down is your interest income, and that came in short of $45,000 for the month. We put that budget at $161,000 for this year. It's very conservative compared to the market right now. The Fed rate right now is 5.33%, and we budgeted you around 2.5%. We just don't know by next summer what the rates are going to do. So we're just going to play it safely. Moving on down to the rest of your expenditures, just to go over budget real quick, you have a miscellaneous line in there for $650,000. We plugged in some training and legal services. And then your COK, the City of Kerrville contract is $205,000, and then KDC is $343,000 for the year. Right now on the books, we have the projects that we know of, and that is the remaining of the airport projects, Sid Peterson remaining contract, downtown utility streetscape. We haven't sent out any funding on that yet. Downtown River Trail, and then the Travis Street pump stations Mr. Hornes was talking about. October net change in position was $191,000. All right, on to cash flow. Not a lot movement right here yet. First month of the year, ending cash balance is $5.5 million for the end of October. And your columns there to the right are just the fiscal year projections. And then financial analysis, your top chart there is your sales tax comparisons. Middle chart is the remaining project commitments, and then your bottom chart there are your cash and investments. Taxable average yield this month was 5.58%. And then you do have a short-term investment that's maturing on Friday the 17th. And we already replaced that in September with the commercial paper. And that is all for October.
Questions? No one signed up to speak on that?
No.
Thank you, Trina. It's good to see the sales tax exceeding budget again, so that's good. All right. Item number 6A is a public hearing on the intent to undertake projects as described in section 505.152 of the Texas Local Government Code. And Mike, do I need to read this entire?
If you would.
Yes, I will. Including in particular, but not limited to, the Callow Theater roof and heating and air conditioning systems, HVAC replacement and improvements, Olympic pool facility renovations and improvements, golf course facility renovations and improvements, Heart of the Hills Heritage Center renovation, upgrades and improvements, Ranger McDonald Park improvements.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for taking the time. We have a whole team here for this project today, and this is going to be kind of two parts. So the first part of it, we'll discuss the projects, and that's item 6A. Item 6B is where all these folks here in the front row, who are significantly smarter than I'll ever be, talk about the resolutions and the bond financing and the covenants and all those questions. I tried to read through all 160 pages of it. And there were some words in there I had to look up. So, for right now, let's talk about where we are and how we got here. So we had been talking about these quality of life projects for quite some time. There are three sort of active projects in terms of they're currently being used by the public that is the purview of the Parks and Rec Department. So the pool, the Calu Theater, sorry, and the golf course. And there's a project that is one of our design builds, which is the Historic Heart of the Hills Heritage Center. Good God. I'm going to get that right, Joe. It's just the number of people here. And the last one is the Guadalupe River Center. So let's go over just kind of briefly each one of these projects. All right, Charlie, is this? There you go. Just go. Okay. So the Calu Theater. This is one that is HVAC and roof replacement, primarily. There's going to be a little bit of interior work done to the stage as well as a part of this, but all of it is due to, rain damage, 20 years worth of a roof being there, and we have done everything that we can from Parks and Rec staff to kind of band-aid this thing, but it is now at the end of its useful life. So the estimates when we got this, and we worked with Mr. Peter Lewis, who is here in the crowd today, on getting estimates, which we are going to get updated in the next few days as well. Set that number at about $2.9 million, but that was August of 2022. And so we wanted to put a little bit of a buffer in there, and so we recommended to you all that we put $4 million towards that project. Our hope is that it comes in well under that $4 million, much, much closer to that $2.9 million mark, but there's some unknowns in there. So that is for full replacement of all the HVAC units and full replacement of that roof. We envision that to take multiple iterations, at least 2, if not 3. So it's been phased, and we have kind of, here are the first and most critical components that we'd have to get done, and then on and on. But there's a section of that roof where I stepped on it, and I was like, well, let's get that replaced, because it's not supposed to bounce like that. All right, Charlie, the next one. The Olympic pool. So Parks and Rec went through an entire iteration of feasibility and what could be done out there. Not to belabor it and go through the whole thing, but one of the options that included a significant number of projects was $28 million. Is that right? I don't think we wanted to come and ask you all for 28. So the next iteration, which would be to upgrade it, add some additional facilities to it, and make some much needed repairs that this hasn't had in about 50 years, get it ADA compliant, had a price tag of just over $5.4 million. But that, again, is a dated number prior to the inflationary pressures we're all seeing now. So the request from staff was to have that number be $7 million for the pool. Again, with the hopes of that number coming in significantly lower. So Ashley and her team have prepped, working on contract documents with Marvin Mock to take to council for consideration. It's all pending the outcome of all these discussions we're having. And so those are the folks who did the initial assessment, and we wanted them to come back in and give us an update on those numbers, talk through what the best steps are. We are, in addition to that, talking through with Shriner and with Tybee applications, uses of that pool, so it's a year-round service. That would be an option, but those are programmatic decisions that we're all still working through. They're going to have to decide whether they want to partner with us or not. And so I think there's kind of 2 paths that we can take. One that is more of a year-round option that we could grow into, and if that's not a viable option for both of those entities to partner up with us, that we would have an option that would be upgrades towards our seasonal pool. That make sense? All right, Charlie, we can go to the next one. Scott Shriner Golf Course. I like the heart on the fairway. It's really nice. So again, this is one of the, 20 years has passed since significant upgrades to a lot of this asset for the city have happened. So we enlisted the help of a company called Troon to come out and do an assessment on the golf course. They have been out there, they've done that, they've given their recommendations back to Parks and Rec, I believe, at this time. And so what we've done is we placed a value in there of not to exceed $4 million for that project as well. Again, with the hopes that they would come back and say that's significantly less than that, but we don't know. So this is to replace all 18 greens, widen some of the bridges out there, do renovations to some of the shop buildings that we have out there, and spruce it up a little bit. Charlie, we can go to the next one. Next on our list, we have, this is one of 2 design build projects that the city is involved in. The initial estimates and the RFP that were sent out put this project at $3.25 million. When it came back in a price tag that was slightly higher than that at $5.3 million. And so in that vein, to get this project to completion so we can move on to the next phase of the request was for EIC to fill that gap. And so this would be the renovations to the AC Shriner House. We have 30% schematic design documents, and they still feel comfortable with that figure. The caveat being that, we haven't looked under every board, obviously. They've done some selective openings and feel comfortable with the assessment they have. It is a historic structure. It's been around for a while. It has some roof penetrations. And so when they dig in there, they're going to give us some updated numbers once we get to 60% and 90% construction drawings. Talking to the contractor, though, he felt confident that that number is going to hold for the estimate on the house. Jarvie, we'll go to the next one. And for this one, I'll turn it over to our city manager, Dalton Rice.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I took this one off of Michael and them. They've been obviously working on a lot of other projects. I kind of jumped in and been able to work with Mr. Anderson and Lang and the group. So on this one, the idea is to bring in the GRC, the Guadalupe River Center, which was, I think, about a 300-person center, which is to the, I guess, on the left side of the screen. What this project ideally would focus on up front would be to add permeable pavers and a concrete drive and a ramp going into Nimitz Lake. And I think there's a landscaping component to that. For us, what we're kind of looking at, this is one of many parks. We have about 27 to 29 parks covering about 1,000 acres. From a staffing perspective, we haven't really focused on this one because there's obviously a lot of other parks that we need to look at. Really the big question that we have, and we've kind of gone back and forth talking with them, is on the concrete ramp drive and the pavers. What is the intent kind of behind it, and bringing in the concrete structures or the road or whatever that would look like? How would that factor into the growth of the area? This is part of the landing group, and so we've been able to talk with some of the other stakeholders in that area to try to figure out how to get this area developed. But the core of the project would focus on just the pavers, the concrete drives, and then some of the landscaping. What we don't know, and I don't have an answer to this, I'm not the expert in it. We don't know if we could get away with permeable pavers, or if another option would be better that would potentially make it a little more cost effective and still kind of get the same outcome. So we don't have any engineering design, we don't have any conceptual designs other than this, but we can definitely take some questions as far as what this will look like. So project high level objective, it would be to gain access to Nimitz Lake ideally. Yes, sir.
This project also includes the floating dock though, right?
That I don't know. It does include okay, so yes, it does include the floating dock there.
Next question, is the parking lot on the park or is it on the riverside? I mean, the Guadalupe River Center side. Who owns
It would be ours.
It's on the park
It
property.
would be on the park property, yes, sir.
Do we have permeable pavers on any of our other parking lots?
I don't think so. We've met with UGRA, we met with a lot of folks. You know, there's kind of back and forth on whether the permeable pavers would be worth it. I've tried to ask around for some other cities and just some other folks as far as what the benefit of it would be versus not. I don't know if there is a benefit. Ideally, you know, we could potentially accomplish the same thing by just doing flat work. And that could be a much more cost-effective approach and still achieve the outcome and the goal of what this would do. But we won't even know that until engineering, or even, we don't even have any percentage of design on this yet.
Okay.
And what percentage of the funds have to be used within, I believe, 3 years?
3 years. 3 years. Yeah, it'd have to be 3 years. So 85%? 95%. 95%. So, you know, with that and a couple things too, not just this project, let's just talk in general, you know, and I will have the experts here correct me if need be. But in the bond, as you put in projects or as you put in different projects or different goals, you know, you can have other options in there. So if there's 3 years and it has to be 95% complete, we do have shovel-ready projects, you know, that could be done if need be. So there are some options, whether that is, say, hey, after a certain period of time, you know, we're going to, you know, shift those projects. There was a talk of a POMA at one point. We haven't dove into the nitty-gritty details. We're still kind of working through, you know, what some of the GRC folks, and of course, these gentlemen have much more knowledge on that than I do. We're just focused on the project itself. But yes, 95% of the project would have to be expended within 3 years. So ideally, after the first 12 months, depending on what EIC and the council really wanted to do with the funding, it would have to be right after 12 months that we would recommend shifting those funds to something else if need be. And that would go for any bond type projects.
And would EIC approve shifts to funds, or would that be the purview of staff?
Ideally, we would bring all of that to EIC and to council. Staff would not make the ultimate decision on that. We would bring those back to the boards. You know, the funding got approved. Let's just say the 20 million got approved, and there was that 2.2, you know, still there. We would bring all that back. We would not make those decisions as staff alone. We would bring that back to the purview of EIC and to council.
We have 800,000 built in for miscellaneous park projects.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct. Okay. And Ashley, maybe this is a question for you, or do you want to speak to those and the priorities of those projects, or just at the time whenever you guys are ready to initiate any of those projects? It'd be good to know what those funds are going towards.
The 800,000,
Mhm.
those will mainly be towards playground replacements and improvements to Louise Hayes Park fountain pump room.
That's right, okay. Okay, I'm gonna look to staff for some direction at this point. First of all, there are going to be some items on the agenda today that are going to affect members of this board just by the means that they are on a board. So, for example, I'll disclose that I'm on the Habitat Board, which is a later discussion point. But on these items or any others, I'd like everybody just to disclose what boards they're on.
I'm on the Upper Guadalupe River Center Board.
The ex officio member of the Harley Hills Heritage Center.
I serve on no other boards.
I'm on the board of the Upper Guadalupe River Center Foundation.
We've got Greg now. Greg, can you hear us? Looks like his mic is muted. My understanding is we have to have audio and visual for him to be able to participate both. Okay, so we've
I
got.
know Charlie and them are working through it now. We're dropping like flies over here on some of it.
Okay.
So while they're kind of getting that sorted out, you know, talking about kind of, we'll call it, I'm going to say staff direction, but very loosely, what we want to provide to both the EIC board and to the city council on any project, doesn't matter what it is. What is the business? What is the objective approach to it? How can we objectively look at this. So, we're gonna, the bond council and the bond folks are gonna talk about the numbers, they're gonna talk about interest rates, they're gonna talk about that. Really for us on staffing, with kind of Granger McDonald Park, even though it's only a small component, even if, regardless of what direction it is, we don't have the staffing necessarily to provide, the adequate staffing service levels to it, should it have to get turned back over to the city, which is kind of why it's been, where it's been. Even though this doesn't directly have anything to do with kind of the Granger McDonald Park, the landing stuff, working with some of the stakeholders in there, we are looking at figuring out how to develop that shovel-ready dirt. There's infrastructure already there. How do we get to that perspective? When we look at some of the financing mechanisms and some of the funding vehicles, we look at the financing component. Well, just like in the private sector, there's the business side of it. Some of the development hasn't happened because financing or interest rates may be too high. We're no different in the public sector other than it's public funds. So all of this stuff, we're going to look at it objectively. We're going to provide y'all, what we have as far as the numbers, the facts. Outside of the opinions, we do know that all of these projects are covered by strategic catalyst areas. They are part of the 2050 plan. And how we go about that, we serve at the pleasure of the board when it comes to it, and serve at the pleasure of council when it comes to it. And so we can see value into anything, and we will obviously make anything work. So we'll get more direction as far as, not direction, but we'll get some more of the objective side of it when bond council kind of presents. And we're going to present the range. We're only presenting the range of that simply from what the bond packages were from the beginning all the way through the 20 million, which is the cap. We're not doing one on 23 because that didn't get approved, so it's a moot point. So that way everybody, constituents, council, EIC board members, we all just get the range of it from what the interest rates would be based off of our assumptions, from 15 million up to the 20 million. So we're looking at it just from the unbiased, objective approach to this.
And will we have the bond council under item 6B as a presentation, or is it part of this item, 6B? Okay. As far as the way I want to approach this is questions for clarification, and then open it up to speakers who have signed up. And then if you have not signed up, this is a public hearing. So after all of the speakers have been named, have come forward to speak, and if there is something that you, as someone that didn't sign up for, wants to speak on with one of these items in mind, we can do that. So my question before we do any of that, though, is when we get to the part of this where we are looking at this resolution, is it a staff recommendation that we have a motion as to all of the items together, or is it recommended that we go through these one by one for approval?
Pending the legal side of what Mike says, I would recommend going one by one. That way y'all have a true assessment of what y'all are looking at, versus just making a random motion and then, something may get missed or taken away. So that would be my recommendation on it, but.
Are y'all comfortable doing that? Comfortable doing that? I'm not, yes, yeah, okay. All right. At this time, I would like to ask EIC for, since we will be looking at each item, any general questions before we open the public hearing.
Great.
Greg's back. Can you hear us now, Greg? That's frustrating. Okay, if you can hear me, speak. Just speak so we know if we can hear you. Okay. All right. I'm going to move on. At 4:49, I'm going to open the public hearing. Keisha, do we have speakers signed up?
We have 13 speakers signed up. However, this is a
We'll do 3 minutes per speaker.
Yes.
Okay.
Kent McKinney.
Board. Good afternoon. Kent McKinney, live at 3420 Trace Circle. I just would like to encourage the issuance of this bond. I think all the projects, I don't think there's ever a perfect, combination of things that come about, but we got very good community assets that need some care. We got a park space that is not at all developed. We got a house that has the potential for being good for the heritage Foundation. So we got opportunity to use some sales tax money other people are paying, not just, you know, us paying for it out of our property taxes. And so it's real important, I think, that for the community to go forward to pass issues like this, even if everybody doesn't view everything as being perfect within the package. And so, and I lived in a community where there was always know this and know that, and we don't want the perfect to be the enemy of the good. So we got something real good here, I think, that can do a lot for the community. And so I encourage you to, you know, to help with this quality of life issuance. Thanks.
Charlie McElvain.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman and EIC Board. I am Charlie McElvain at 128 Mesa del Sol in Kerrville and retired President and CEO of the Kerrville Convention and Visitors Bureau. One of the most underutilized areas of Kerrville, yet an area that is almost with unlimited potential, is the city-owned Nimitz Lake Granger McDonald Park. And I'm urging the EIC Board and the City Council to move forward with the $2.2 million funding request for the Granger McDonald Park improvements requested by the Upper Guadalupe River Center Board of Directors. Based on a variety of programs, including multi-sport competitions, events and camps, sailing regattas, radio-controlled events, open water swim competition and classes, scuba certification, bike tours, high school, university, and Sea Scout sailing events, white-collar labeled sailing camps, and a variety of children and family-oriented competitions and events aimed at not only the residents of Kerrville, but also year-round travelers. Kerrville has the opportunity to generate millions of fresh dollars plus new tax dollars into our community on an annual basis with these and other programs. One example is the Kerrville Triathlon or Tri-Festival, which currently generates almost $500,000 annually into our community, based on the sale of hotel rooms, meals, fuel, and other incidentals. The Kerrville Sports Complex on Holdsworth Drive is another example. That complex generates equally impressive revenue for our community each time it hosts a major event. Economic impact studies conducted by nationally known Dean Runyon and Associates, a highly respected travel industry research organization, conducted studies with the following results. Each athlete participating in special events and activities are normally joined by 2.2 additional visitors, and they spend or they generate approximately $200 per day per person during their visit. The good news is this is only a fraction of things to come, with events and activities that will potentially be generated for Kerrville taking place at Granger McDonald Park. And better yet, visitors to our community generate approximately a third of the tax revenue collected by our city. These tax dollars provide goods and services for our community that citizens of Kerrville do not have to pay for. Once these individuals visit Kerrville, participate in their events, spend their money, they go home, creating a win-win for every business and every citizen of Kerrville. For these and other reasons, I encourage the EIC Board and the City Council to approve the Upper Guadalupe River Center Board's request for the $2.2 million for the Granger McDonald Park improvements.
I was right on the nose. Thank you, Charlie. You were right on the nose with your time. Thank you.
William Rector.
Thank you. Bill Rector, 705 Water Street. I'm here today to praise you all for returning some of our tax dollars back to the citizens of Kerrville, some of our sales tax dollars. These projects are not only going to be good for the community, but they are also going to be good for our quality of life, and they also fit into the 2050 plan. I would like to speak specifically about the Heart of the Hills Heritage Project, located on the Bud Holdsworth Library campus. This 1909 landmark was built for Captain Schreiner's son, and his son became also a community leader. This downtown landmark housing the Heritage Center will become a further draw for visitors and for residents alike as a center for education, for social gatherings, and for fun. As we attract new families to our community, they are going to need to be educated about their new home, what its rich history is in an exciting, interactive, and fun way. Retirement living was for years our growth industry. However, we are now seeing many young families moving to Kerrville. These will become our future leaders. They have chosen Kerrville not so much because of a job, but because of the area's beauty, safety, schools, and yes, quality of life here. This Heritage Center will become an attraction for those families to spend quality time together, learning together and having fun exploring our exciting, challenging, interactive exhibits. A place to make learning fun. Thank you very much for supporting this project.
Stephen King.
Hi there. Thank you for having me today. I want to speak to the Granger McDonald Park. I was excited on the quality of life issues. I represent 4100 San Antonio Highway. I'm the Senior Vice President of Texas Lions Camp, and we serve about 1,500 children with physical disabilities, diabetes, Down syndrome, cancer, those type of things. Each summer, we bring about 1,000 people in every Friday. When those parents are here and the families are here, they're looking for something to do. And they want something exciting, but they also want to know that they're going to have accessibility to the river and to the parks and to be able to get in and have access down to the river. And currently we can send them across the street from the Lions Camp behind the Ag Barn, and they can get along there, and there's a dirt trail and there's pathways around there, but there's not a way I can get somebody in a wheelchair or transfer them safely into a boat or into the river. And when I saw this park come online, when Mr. Gurrow shared it with me, I was passionate about coming and being part of that, because it's an opportunity where we're going to have real accessibility to what we have to offer in the city of Kerrville for both our visitors and our young families and our generations of people that may not have all the working parts and all the body parts moving perfectly, but they're here to be part of our community. And when this park is part of that, we're going to put something into Kerrville that can be accessed by those summer camps and by those kids and by moms and dads and by young families who are coming to not only be part of our community, but to be part of what we have to offer in this community. And I think as a community in Kerrville, we're proud. We're proud of the city we live in, we're proud of the community we live in, and we're proud of what we're providing. And for us to have a park and an opportunity to meet the needs of all those people is exceptional to me. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Bill Riley.
Bill Raleigh, 1208 Jack Drive. I come here in two parts. One, as a citizen, I support the pool and the improvements dramatically of relatively new to Kerrville. I've gotten here in 2017. We've enjoyed our time here, and I think it's great for, this is going to create tremendous opportunity and also help us grow. I come also in the official capacity as the Director of Athletics at Schreiner University. The improvements for the pool would create a potential opportunity for tremendous collaboration between Schreiner and the city for intercollegiate swimming in the city. I think it would be fantastic for our school as well as the university, everyone in the community, for practice opportunities and all those things. Also, I think it creates some workforce opportunities of our students who will be in swimming to help with, I know lifeguarding is a tough one to get kids to do, and we have swimmers who'll be able to do that. So I stand before you, fully support the Parks and Recs and want to be part of that partnership. So thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa Nye Saladin.
My name is Lisa Nye Saladin. I live at 1015 Morningside Drive, and I'm the current chair of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. I voiced my concerns to this bond and the breakdown of the monies that will be allocated. It may appear that I object to the Granger McDonald Park, and I'd like to clarify a few things. I don't object to this park and the vision it represents. I do object to the use of public funds that are being diverted from other parks in Kerrville that have gone through the process of public hearings, master plans, approvals, priorities, and support of city staff, the Parks and Recreation Department, and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. The precedent that is being set here is one that I would question going forward. A private group has skirted the process, and without a city-vetted public park master plan is now getting public funding for a vision. I'm skeptical that the promises made are going to be kept. Without the project going through the Parks and Recreation Department and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board and receiving that specific support needed for a public park, I would like to see some sort of track record of a completed project done by a private group receiving public funds for a public park. Speaking to the entire bond proposal, small projects that are within the scope of the bond should be pulled from the big projects and be considered independently funded by cash versus paying interest over 25 years. I think that would be prudent and will leave flexibility for future EIC projects, which are never ending in the city of Kerrville.
Lauren Porter.
Hi, and thank you for the opportunity to address you. We are one of those new families that were brought to Kerrville because of the amazing amenities we have, Parks and Rec departments and programming. I'm here on behalf of C3 Swim Team, and we represent over 100 families in Kerrville that range from learn to swim to competitive swim. So officially, I'm here to support the dollars that are going to be invested into the Olympic pool, not only for competitive swimming year-round, which ideally we would like, but the continuation of programming through Kerrville ISD and through Shriner, and the opportunities to, again, invest in lifeguards, invest in physical therapy programming, and learn to swim as well as competitive swim, and also the economic impact that brings, and the support that it also lends to another project, the Guadalupe River Center, which I would like to also pledge support to. A little bit of background on me and my specific interest in that. I work for one of the world's leading climate change research companies in New York. And I've also held a LEED certification through the U.S. Green Building Council previously in my career, which I'm sure our architect friend is familiar with. But I recently was able to hear a presentation on the project, and I want to encourage you to continue to support the forward-looking, incredible plans such as the permeable pavers and some of the other initiatives that are being proposed as being good stewards of the opportunity and being a leader in this type of project. And I think it's incredibly important to set that expectation in the community for our young children, such as rainwater harvesting, and again, the stewardship of this asset that we have in Nimitz Lake. So I'm really proud to support that project as well. And from the presentations I've seen, their vision for it is really remarkable, and very excited as a young family to be here for the future of that project and the Olympic pool project. Thank you.
Angela Kennedy.
Good afternoon, 547 Fairway Drive. I'm the Executive Director of Heart of the Hills Heritage Center and also a citizen here in Kerrville. And I'm here to provide my support for the bond sale that will provide needed funding for quality of life projects, and to speak specifically about the renovation of the A.C. and Murda Shriner House for the future site of the Heart of the Hills Heritage Center. The house was given to the city to be used as a public space for educational purposes to enhance the Butt Holdsworth Memorial Library campus. Heart of the Hills Heritage Center can accomplish that objective, but only if the additional funding is put towards the project. My work with the Heritage Center Board has focused on developing a sustainable model for this Heritage Center. We have been working with a sustainability consultant experienced in guiding museums to develop a model that will serve their communities and that will be successful. I say that because we take this project very seriously, and we are working with community leaders, arts and cultural organizations, and area foundations to ensure that this is a successful project and one that is relevant to our community members. I strongly believe this is the right time, and the A.C. Shriner House is the right place for the Heritage Center. I have also heard from countless community members that also believe this is the right time and the right place. What better place for a Heritage Center that celebrates our community's history than in a house that has been here since 1909, that our community knows, that our community has attended parties at and events, and that we can see in historic photographs from more than 100 years ago. So I urge you to support this project so that our community can continue to enjoy the place and to celebrate our history for 100 years or more to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Matt Goodwin.
Good afternoon. Thank you for letting me be here to speak on behalf of the Granger McDonald Park. I'm the current Dean of Students at Charter University. I'm at 605 Milton here in Kerrville. Been there for a very long time. Grew up here in Kerrville, Tybee grad, Charter grad. And I'm here today to speak on behalf of the excitement of the opportunity that this might bring. We work with a lot of students that come to our campus that haven't been able to experience something. That something is a lot of a variety across academics, other types of experiences. Currently, we have access to the river, we have access to water, waterfront, but this would bring so much more of a possible opportunities, not just to our students, but the campus, to Kerrville. When we have families come to be a part of what we call the Shriner community, it's not just the Shriner community, it's the Kerrville community. And we spend a lot of time and effort trying to connect them, not just to our campus, but to the city. This is just one more piece that we can have access to provide that opportunity, not just for our students coming in, that many continue to stay after graduation, but their families, to have that possibility to be a part of a Kerrville community that really is thriving and growing, and there's excitement, and they would like to be a part of that excitement, and really feel at the Shriner, at the university, that we can help provide those different opportunities, and just wanted to share the excitement that we have with this possibility.
Thank you.
Lane Guerrero.
Good afternoon. My name is Lane Guerrero. I live at 307 Lakewood Drive in Kerrville. I'm here to express my support of the much needed development of Granger McDonald Park on Nimitz Lake. And a couple of things I wanted to talk about was the idea that we have not talked to Parks and Rec. We did try to talk to Parks and Rec initially. Anyone knows that I'll make a presentation anytime to anywhere to anybody. So but anyway. For those of you who are not familiar with Nimitz Lake, it's a body of water located near Chili's and Starbucks. I mention this because many people are unaware that we even have a lake in our town. The lake is approximately 100 acres in size and surrounded by several hundred acres of undeveloped property. In fact, it's just like Town Lake for Austin, right here in Kerrville. Nimitz Lake has limited access, which restricts the number of visitors. However, Shriner Park provides an excellent example of how access can increase activity. The stretch of river along the park is a popular spot for outdoor enthusiasts, especially on weekends with good weather. You will see many kayaks, floats, boats, people all out enjoying the water, families out there, and it's due to the park's ramp, the little river park part, and 500-foot ledge, which makes it easy for people to get in and out of the river. The proposed development of Granger McDonald Park will provide the needed access and much more. The proposed improvements include an 80-foot wide ramp that serves as a permanent starting point for our triathlon, one of our largest economic events in Kerrville, and also provide easy access for the lake for people and pets. This ramp will be able to accommodate large events involving swimmers, sailboats, kayaks, paddleboards, and other watercraft. The other big part of it is a 200-foot long stretch of boardwalk. The boardwalk's important because it provides a viewing area for lake activities and proper kayak launches for seniors and people who need a little more stability when entering the water on a kayak. Also included are handicap accessible piers for disabled children, seniors, veterans who need this special equipment to access the lake. Not only are there many local camps and organizations that will benefit from the specialized piers, there are even disabled veteran organizations like Heroes on the Water that host annual kayak fishing tournaments for U.S. active duty military veterans, law enforcement officers, and first responders. Also included are, and lastly, there will be a parking made of permeable pavers. We talked about newcomers into this town. It's going to be a great project to have newcomers go to the heart of the hills But being a newcomer also means you have to be a good steward of the resources that we have, whether it's the night sky, the river, as far as permeable parking. I just want to say that it's important to filtrate that water. That is, in fact, our drinking water that we're talking about. And there's no reason to put asphalt. And the city should lead and be an example and also work with the UGRA to show people. In simple terms, investing in the new lake is vital.
That's time, Lane.
Oh, it's time?
Yes, thank you.
All right, well, I strongly encourage you all to vote in favor of the proposed project.
Rachel Johnston.
Hi there, I'm Rachel Johnston. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm at 400 Overlook in Kerrville, Texas. My husband and I have been here a long time. I know many of you. We run Moore's Home and own and operate Moore's Home Furnishings. I got involved with the project just because, really because of the tremendous impact I think it's going to have in our community and our youth. I'm really focused on the youth. First, I want to say the two reasons why I'm passionate about the project are because I've seen a project very, I feel like I'm kind of bouncing off this, a project, sorry, I talked too loud, a project similar to this in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's on the Arkansas River, and you go there, it's a wonderful facility. It's a much larger scale than this, but they have a lodge with a community living room, which is something we're trying to raise money for, to not part of Granger McDonald, but part of the project, privately raise money for that. They put people in kayaks, paddle boards. They have a great lawn. There's people out there playing cornhole, overlooking the river. It's just a wonderful spot, and we could have that at Granger McDonald Park. When I went there and saw the community living room, I was like, we have to have this in Kerrville. There were people playing bridge over on one side. There were people just in big shell chairs overlooking the river. There were kids doing a student project. It's community fellowship at its greatest. And that's what brings the community together. That's what makes a community tight-knit. Or facilities like this, parks like this, where we enjoy our own natural resources. Our kids are addicted to these right now. This is what they're addicted to. And we need to get them in our lake, in our river. When it's 105 degrees in the summer and there's nothing for them to do, they can go play on the parks, but they need to be in the water. So we need to get them off this. And then the other reason I'm passionate is because I've been in the schools, and a lot of people, and I know you all probably know, but a lot of people don't realize that Kerrville ISD, and I'm sure Ingram is very similar, over half of the kids in our school district are on free and reduced lunch. That means they're economically disadvantaged. And 3 of our elementary schools hover around 60% free and reduced lunch. These kids have opportunities in the classrooms because we're providing a great education in Kerrville and Ingram, but they don't have opportunities outside and at home as much. They just don't. They don't go to camps. They don't travel. They live in the 3-mile radius of their home. And these kids, I talked to Katie Fineski the other day, and she said kids come there for dream camp and they don't know how to swim and they don't know how to get in a kayak, and they're from Kerrville. So I realize I'm running out of time, so I just want to real quickly say, please vote for the project. It's a project that will impact people of all ages and all walks of life in our community. It is a project that will enable us to provide access to one of our city's most beautiful gems, Nimitz Lake. It is a project that will improve the quality of life of all our citizens, regardless of income level or ethnicity. It will expand our neighborhoods and improve the fellowship of our community like no other. The community accepted this property as a city park several years ago. So let's make it happen now. Let's not wait 5 years. Let's make it happen now. Thank you.
Ashley Phillips.
Perfect. I'll be really fast because I got to go pick up Colt from preschool. So I'm about to have to leave. It's perfect timing. Ashley Phillips, 2718 Shepherd Reese Road, here to represent Young Families of Kerrville. When we were looking to move here, one of our stops in checking out the town to determine if we're going to follow my husband's job to the Houston area, the Corpus area, or the San Antonio Kerrville area was the Shriner Golf Course. So I'm glad that y'all are looking at improving on that facility as well. And they asked, why would you move here? You're too young to live here. And we thought, oh, we have old souls, maybe we'll make it. So we've really enjoyed living here. It's a beautiful town full of beautiful people, and I know so many people in this room, and I'm just so happy to hear all the support. And I also would like to speak in support of the bond for the quality of life, not just of the GRC, but of all the facilities. And I look forward to bringing up my little boys and educating them on the county that they were born in and offering them activities right here in their hometown. We moved here from East Texas, which has lots of water, rivers, lakes, public access, kayaking, and activities of this nature and boating. And I remember being on Kristen Hedger's pontoon boat before this even got started and hearing John Anderson's dream. And he said, please take this and fly with it. And I said, I have too much going on, but I'm glad to see that it's here. I'm glad to see that there's so many people in this community working so hard, and I'm here to show my support and throw in my efforts and my family and enjoy this. And I just really, I would love to see these things happen. The museum and the River Center. I appreciate y'all's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marcus Goodyear.
Hello, I'm Marcus Goodyear with 514 East Lane. My wife and I raised our kids here in Kerrville. They went through KISD. They both graduated from Tybee. They're doing great. One thing we all agree on in our community is that the stories we tell matter. The Cal-O, we bring in stories from outside, and the Heart of the Hills Heritage Center is going to be the stories of our community. And this is incredibly important. We do not currently have a place in our town where we tell our own story with focus. So I want to express my gratitude that you guys are considering this and encourage you to approve the funding. And I promise, as a member of the Heart of the Hills Heritage Board, to commit to this project and to commit to bringing these stories to our community in a dynamic and engaging way. We've already identified 6 exciting themes at a summit with 50 different community leaders earlier this year. And this funding will help us continue to celebrate current leaders, past leaders, and understand how our leaders got to be who they are, whether it was several hundred years ago or today. I am also the Senior Director of Communications for the H.E. Butt Foundation. I'm speaking for myself, but in that role, I help manage the archives of the H.E. Butt Foundation. And because the Heart of the Hills Heritage Center will be on the campus with the Mary Holdsworth, or the Holdsworth Butt Memorial Library, I think it's important to remember that Mary Holdsworth herself is one of our great leaders in this community. She had a vision for preserving land for kids to experience 100, 150 years from now. That became the H.E. Butt Foundation Camp. Something we don't talk about as often is she had a parallel vision for preserving history. And so far that has been primarily in our community been relegated to the library. But the Heart of the Hills Heritage Center will carry forward that vision and that part of her vision, and the H.E. Butt Foundation Archives will be a part of it, and I am very excited for it. I encourage you to support the fund. Thank you.
Kelly Dunnigan.
Kelly Dunnigan, Scenic Valley Road, that would be me. I am here in support of, in particular, actually all of these are really great, but in particular for Nimitz, on behalf of all of the students of KISD. You're looking at so many kids with an opportunity for us to teach them stewardship. I teach science, and I'm going to tell you straight up, sometimes it's pretty depressing what we're teaching them right now, and the opportunity to get out on the water, to be a part of that, to be making a positive influence is a wonderful thing.
Kelly is our last signed up citizen speaker. However, this is a public hearing.
Hey, this is a public hearing. If you would like to speak, if you'll just raise your hand, and when you come forward to the microphone, state your name and your address so we have that on record.
Yeah, I did fill out the form, but I guess I got missed. Okay, I'm Bruce Kreiser. I'm at 116 Dover Drive, Newcastle, Combe, and I'm here to ask you folks to reconsider modifying the Hal Peterson Farm Road out to Mooney. I'm afraid it might be a waste of money. From what I can understand, building a concrete plant.
Mr. Kreiser, I'm so sorry to cut you off, but that would be
Item 6C.
That would be item 6C. So we'll be coming to that in a couple. This is particular to the 5 issues.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought everybody that was Bill form I've done already. I was getting.
No, well, we're going item by item, so we'll get back to you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Got to sit down and wait a little bit longer.
I apologize.
No, not at all. It's good to see you. All right. Does anyone else want to speak?
Greg Richards, 501 Earl Garrett. I want to just beat the drum some more for the workforce housing. The opportunities that are here, it's great to hear about them. It's great to see the energy that's behind them and the support they have in the community. And they come with a really significant price tag. And I don't know how much of the EIC's budget it will require to service that debt each year, but I'm sure it's going to be pretty significant. And while I think it's great to have lots of amenities in this community, I think the one amenity that we could probably all agree on is home ownership, that's a great place to start. And so I just want to ask you to consider, as part of your deliberation and looking at these good projects, is making sure that housing for those that are living and working in this community, having a place to get on the property ladder and build equity, is an opportunity that we present to the families in Kerrville. That's the first step to getting to enjoy all the rest of it. Thanks.
Okay. At 5:21, I will close the public hearing. And I didn't really finish make a full loop when I asked for everyone to disclose what boards they were on. To be very, very clear, anyone on this dais that is a board member of any organization is not and is not, what am I trying to say? It is not a conflict of interest, according to the law, for them to be able to speak to or against any issue or vote. When it becomes a conflict of interest is when there's financial gain involved. So I did want to have just full, I wanted, yes, full disclosure of not only what boards people may be serving on in this capacity, but that they do also have a right to participate in this process as board members. So that being said, as staff directed, guys and gal, we'll take items starting with item number 1. And I am going to start with John. If you have any, or do you have general comments before we go item by item, or do we want to start with each item?
I'd like to make a few general comments if I might. I've got basically 5 points I would like to cover. And preface that I am not against any of these projects. I think we've heard great comments on them. They're all worthy. I do have some exceptions with the process that we've arrived at, so I wanted to just give you my thoughts. So up first, just as a little history, how we arrived at this place. EIC met with the City Council in joint session this summer, discussed the possibility of floating a sales tax revenue bond to assist the city with what the City Council, and these are their words, deemed to be essential maintenance items. And these items were specifically the Calo Center roof and HVAC, the city golf course, and municipal swimming pool. When the bond package actually was presented to the EIC, it was a surprise to see that 2 additional items have been added to that package, increasing the cost of the bond from somewhere around $15 million to approximately $20 million. The 2 items were a floating dock and a parking lot at the Guadalupe River Center, which is not even funded at this time, and additional funding for the Historical Center. Both of these projects, very worthy projects, but they would consider what I consider to be, would be nice projects, but certainly not essential. I personally would much rather see the River Center and the Historical Center be funded, whether it's from this organization or other organizations, but done on a cash basis than rather with bond money. The City of Kerrville, point 2, has already shown us that at this time, they do not have the funds available to maintain the parks and buildings that they currently have. That's why they came to us for these essential maintenance items. Yet by passing this bond, we are adding an additional burden to the taxpayers of Kerrville, in which we will add new facilities that will have to be maintained. Thirdly, regardless of how we got here, the reality is that in our previous meeting, the vote to put this bond forward was passed with a split vote of 4-3. 4 in favor, 3 against. I feel pretty strongly that a vote on something of this magnitude should be endorsed by the entire board. Public needs to be aware that 4 of the board members on this that voted in favor, the 4 board members that did vote in favor serve on the boards of the entities that will be receiving the funds. 3 of our EIC members serve on the board of the Guadalupe River Center, and 1 of them serves on the board for the Historical Society. And while I realize there is no legal requirement for these members to recuse themselves, I would ask that they reconsider, not from a legal viewpoint, but from a moral and ethical perspective. It's my opinion that they should not vote, because regardless of their passion of the projects, it really puts forward poor optics, in my opinion. If we move forward with this bond, you're severely handcuffing future EIC boards by limiting their ability to fund future projects. If this bond passes, we'll be committing right at 50% of our cash flow for the next 20 years. It's not a question of whether we can do it, it's a question of whether we should do it. By funding these non-essential projects with bond money, we are increasing the cost of them by 50% when you factor in the interest charges over 20 years. So the additional $5 million that the 2 non-essential projects will actually end up costing us $7.5 million by the time we have paid the interest on it. In closing, I would ask that we consider that we consider tabling this issue on the bond package until we have more time to gather adequate information in order to make sure we're making a good financial decision based upon the citizens of Kerrville truly want. I would suggest that we consider a town hall meeting so that we can hear from more citizens and be provided with additional information before these projects move forward. Thank you.
Do you want to make that in the form of a motion?
Not at this time.
Not at this time. Okay. Before we go to items in specific, the 5 projects that we're going to discuss, are there any other general comments before we move to specific items? Okay. All right, so let's look at the $4 million for the Callow Center roof and HVAC replacement. Any comments before we?
You're going to poll us? Is that what we're doing?
We're going to actually vote on each item. So
I need a motion and a second. And a vote. Okay, thank you.
I think that's what I believe the direction from staff was, so that we would be clear on that. Is that what you were telling me? Did I understand that correctly?
Yes. However you want to do it, but yeah, y'all can do it either through a motion in that way, or you can do it through a polling, however you feel comfortable.
Okay.
Craig may be back online.
Greg, can you hear us? Okay, we can't hear you. Do you have your mic muted?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Okay. Were you listening to prior to coming on just now?
Yes, I was.
Okay, so you're all caught up. Do you have any general comments to make before we look at specific project by project?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. So let me ask the pleasure of the board. Do y'all want to do kind of just a poll, or do you want to actually go through in motion and approve each item? I mean, it's kind of.
Either one's fine.
No preference? Okay, let's just go through that process. Do I have a motion to approve the approximately $4 million for the Callow roof replacement and the HVAC replacement?
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion second. All in favor, let it be known by raising your hand. Okay, motion passes. Now we're at 6-6-0. All right, so let's move on to item number 2, which is the, now I believe this was a change in numbers. Now you're suggesting it might be more like $7 million for the pool?
I think that was the number.
That was what was suggested to us last time? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that has not changed. Okay, very good. All right, any comments on that particular project? Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to consider approving the project to enhance the pool.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please let it be known by raising your hand. And that motion passes 6-0. All right, so now we're going to move on to golf improvements at approximately $4 million. And any comments, questions? All right. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, got motion and second. All in favor, please raise your hand. All right, passes 6-0. All right, so we're going to move to item number 4. That is the Heart of the Hills Heritage Center at approximately, what, 2.1 million? Is that correct? 2 million. 2.0 million.
I move that we include that project in the bond package.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Any discussion since we didn't go down? Okay. All right, all in favor, please let it be known by raising your hand. Okay. That one passes 5-0 and opposed. That one passes 5-1.
So 6-1.
5-1. Yeah, we've got one absent member today. Okay. All right, so the 5th project, any discussion? Okay, so I would like to talk for just a moment. There have been a lot of people that I respect that are in favor of this project, and I would like to be on the record and be very clear that I also really, really want this project to move forward. I have concerns over the timeline. I have that we have to be 95% complete with projects. I don't feel like this one is there yet. I prefer this project to be cash funded when we have an agreement, a memorandum of understanding, so that we have some safeguards in place. That is to say, I want nothing more than this project to go through. I support it, everything about it. I want to support it when the time, in my opinion, is right to cash fund this project. That's my preference. I just don't feel like we're quite there yet. So I just want to make it clear that my vote is not a reflection in any way about the viability of this project, but about what I consider using our funds for and the timing on that. So I just wanted to share that so that my vote would be understood.
Can I make a comment?
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to share why I'm so for it, is that in 2021, I was the chair of the Parks Advisory Board and had the opportunity, which I thought was a tremendous opportunity, to work with the park staff on developing their 10-year master plan. And we were tasked at that time as the board to think big and bold and outside of the box about what could happen over the next 10 years. And in order to do that, we had lots of conversation about the importance of being creative and the funding and looking for different kinds of creative funding with a primary emphasis on selling bonds and on public-private partnerships. And that the McDonald Park meets that kind of criteria. And then the second thing is that the environmental aspect, this was huge on our board. We talked about it several different times about how important it was to be environmentally responsible and to be using not just standard watershed stewardship, but best practices for watershed stewardship. And that's what the permeable pavers represent, is that they are a filtration system and it filters the water that's going into the lake from the park. And that this program also has that. And that this is actually a line item in the 10-year plan. This 10-year plan was published in 2022. And there is a line item in there about increasing access to Nimitz Lake and creating a recreational amenity on the lake for the citizens of Kerrville. And so something that was seen as this long distance, long time away dream of what was possible, that it was something that...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Anyway, it's something that could actually come to fruition within 3 months of the published date of the goals. And there are 8 guiding principles, and this park aligns with 7 of those guiding principles, and there are 66 action items, and this park aligns with 36% of those action items in this goal. So to be able to see a lot of this plan come to the possibility of fruition is what excites me and why I would want to vote yes for it. So, thank you.
Before you all vote particularly on this last item tonight. I'm Tom Spurgeon. I'm actually San Antonio. I'm with McCall Parkerson Horton. We've been bond counsel for the city of Kerrville for several decades, and I'm happy to be here tonight. I want to kind of just clarify one thing that was said earlier, and I think will give you a lot more flexibility and maybe give you a little more perspective in terms of how strictly you would have to have something actually built in 3 years. It's a federal tax rule that you have to have what we call the reasonable expectation that you'll be able to spend 85% of your funds, not necessarily 95, but 85% of your funds within 3 years. And what happens if you don't? And there are a lot of transactions that happen where delays occur and things like that. It doesn't make the bonds taxable as long as you've had the reasonable expectation that you could spend 85% in 3 years. What you do after that 3-year period is, it's not like you have to give the money away to redeem bonds, et cetera. You would have to what we call yield restrict the interest earnings on your bonds. So it does not prevent your ability to continue funding a project. As long as this board has the expectation that you're going to spend 85%, which in this case would be about, what, $17 million for all of the projects, you should have no concerns or issues if for some reason one project or you don't get it all spent within that period of time. And I mentioned earlier that there are times where you think right now that you're going to get it done, but something happens and you get delayed for whatever reason. That's not going to kill it's not going to cause your bonds to become taxable, et cetera. It's just so long as you expect that you can get it done within the 3-year period of time.
Thank you. Okay, so just to clarify for me, and I appreciate that, I support this project. I greatly support this project. I don't have a sense that the Parks and Rec Department is ready to take on a new project right now without a memorandum of understanding and being a little further down the road. That being said, I want to shout from the rooftops, this would be a game changer for Kerrville, and I support this. I would personally prefer to support this with cash funding, but I am going to allow the will of the board, obviously, to rule that, and if the board approves that, then I will be personally be part of the approval for the full amount. So that being said, do we have a motion?
I'll move that we accept this as part of the project.
All right, a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please let it be known by raising your hand. All right, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, so it passes. Opposed? All right. Okay, does that complete item 6A?
I believe so.
Okay, all right. And so we're going to move on to item 6B. Again, part of our public hearing, so do I need to read this agenda item in?
If you would, please.
Sure. All right, item 6B, discuss and take action on resolution authorizing the issuance of up to $20 million in aggregate principal amount of sales tax revenue bonds, Series 2023, authorizing the sale thereof pursuant to a negotiated underwriting, delegating authority to certain officials to approve all final terms with respect to the sale of bonds and other related matters, approving and authorizing the execution of all instruments and procedures related thereto, including a purchase contract, a paying agent register agreement, and an amendment to the sales tax remittance agreement between the city and the corporation, and approving other matters in connection with the issuance of the bonds.
And President Clarkson, if I could just take a moment, I don't want to disrupt this meeting or delay it in any form or fashion, but I do want to read a proclamation that we put together for Mr. Spurgeon. He mentioned he's been here several decades as our bond counsel. It's been longer than that. And I've been here 22, 23 years, and I know that when I first came into office or became city attorney, one of the things that I knew right away I didn't have to worry about was bonds, because Tom handled everything, and if I had any questions or I had a council member with a question, he'd be there to answer it, and you saw the value of that tonight. So I'd like to read this. I'd like to ask Mr. Spurgeon to stand up and be recognized. I know that sometimes people don't want to do that, but let me just read this. This is the City of Kerrville certificate of recognition, and I'm sure EIC would do this as well because you all have issued bonds and you've seen some of Mr. Spurgeon's handiwork. It's hereby presented to Tom Spurgeon with McCall, Parkhurst, and Horton on his 32 years as bond counsel to serve the city of Kerrville. I mean, that's a long time. He's been clearly taking vitamins and watching his health. Tom Spurgeon has been an integral part of McCall, Parkhurst, and Horton since 1986. He has served as bond counsel for the city of Kerrville since 1991, offering his expertise in multiple matters related to municipal debt for an impressive 32 years. We are truly grateful for Tom's unwavering dedication, exceptional legal guidance, and congratulate him on his retirement because he actually is going to retire. He's not firing us. So we wish him all the best. And truly, from the bottom of my heart, it's so easy to do bonds at times around here. Maybe not politically, but certainly legally because Tom is there to help us. So appreciate your service.
Thank you. Paul's very nice.
Can I say one thing real quick? I'm old enough to remember Mr. Spurgeon's help with the city of Kerrville when I was mayor, so thank you for your
You've been on
service.
the council before.
Once before.
Yes, sir. I do remember.
Good.
I very much appreciate that. It was quite a surprise and humbled by that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I remember the name. He was helpful. We both had more hair back then, but.
Yes, sir, we did.
Okay, do we have a presentation?
I do, really quick. So, as you know, our role in the finance department is to provide you information as you go through this decision-making process. We know it's no small feat, and what we've talked about over the last 5 months and all the scenarios we've provided to you. So we're bringing in an expert today. As you know, we work with Hilltop Securities for all of our financial advisory needs with the city. And so Mr. Colby Eccles is here, who's the Senior Vice President with Hilltop. And so he'll be providing you with some information about municipal bonds in general, the process, and then also debt coverage, and then the timetable should you choose to move forward with the bond. So I'll present to you Mr. Eccles.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thank you all for allowing me to be here. I would like to say before I start this, it's encouraging to see the community so involved in this process. You know, typically when I'm up here or see this much community here, it's very contentious, and you know, it's nice to see everything going so smoothly tonight, whether for or against these projects. So it's you all should be very proud of your community. So it's been a little bit since the EIC has issued bonds, so we felt it prudent to kind of go through some of the credit considerations that investors and rating agencies look at when they're analyzing these bonds, determining whether or not to invest in them, and also to talk a little bit about what y'all are being asked to do tonight. So I am going to jump to slide number 3, where we're talking about municipal revenue bonds. These are going to be municipal revenue bonds. These are going to be pledged by sales tax revenues of the city. And credit agencies and investors, the first thing they look at is what the pledge is. This case being sales tax. The next thing that they're going to look at is the flow of funds of the bonds. This is set out by Mr. Spurgeon in the bond resolution. It says how the funds are going to be used. So you have revenues coming in monthly, sales tax revenues coming in monthly, and it says what those revenues have to go to. In this case, it's going to be first the debt service requirements, then any reserve funds, and then any lawful use of funds thereafter. We'll get into that here in a bit. The resolution always also talks about how any additional pledged revenues, such as a reserve fund, can be used. Jumping ahead of myself again, but in this case, there is not going to be a reserve fund pledged initially. If certain benchmarks are hit, then you'll have to over the course of 24 months. But based on the revenue projections and the debt service projections that we have here, we don't anticipate that ever occurring. Non-pledged fund balances can also be a consideration. It's more of a liquidity issue for rating agencies and investors looking to see how how solvent the entity is. If you have good additional revenues, good fund balances out there, it's seen as a credit positive, but it is not an initial consideration of the rating agencies. In this case, pledge revenues are received monthly. Annual debt service coverage is an important factor. This differs a little bit from what you might see in the corporate bond issuance. Aggregate debt outstanding to annual revenues is generally not a ratio that investors or credit agencies look at. It is typically annual revenues to annual debt service that they're looking at, which is your debt service coverage. Going to the next slide, we have detailed the flow of funds for the EIC. It's a little bit incorrect at the top. You have the sales tax revenue bonds and then an arrow going down. That's not necessarily accurate. The proceeds from these bonds is going to go to the construction fund, which all the projects will be paid out of. Your revenues, your sales tax revenues are going to come in. They're going to go to the revenue fund first. They will then be deposited by your paying agent or trustee to the debt service fund. And they will be deposited on a 1/6, 1/12 basis. So they're going to look at, these bonds are going to have semi-annual interest payments and they'll have an annual principal payment. So they will deposit funds for the interest on a 1/6 basis. 1/6 of the upcoming interest will go into the fund monthly, and 1/12 of the upcoming principal payment will go into the debt service fund monthly. Following that, it will go to a reserve fund, which, as I mentioned in this case, will not be funded unless coverage falls to 1.7 times the max annual debt service. Currently, based on our analysis further back, I think at the lowest you're 3.5, something like that. So there's sufficient cushion that this should not come into play. And then finally, the bottom of the bucket, the revenues go into the bottom of the bucket, and they can be used for any lawful purpose on a monthly basis. So since you're funding this on a 1/6, 1/12 basis, you will likely have, or you should have, additional funds each month that can be spent on any purpose. Going to the next page.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Because I don't understand this at all. This ain't my
Okay.
part of what I do. So did I understand you say that if our cash balance gets below 3.5 million?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
That's what I missed.
No, it's a coverage calculation. It looks at your annual revenues to the annual debt service.
Okay.
And if your annual revenues are not greater than 1.75 times your annual debt service, then you would have to fund a reserve requirement. Currently, your annual revenues are 3.5 times after issuance of these bonds. So a little detail on municipal revenue bonds in general. Typically, you have one of two pledges. You either have a net revenue pledge or a gross revenue pledge. Net revenue pledges are typically for water, sewer system, where you have a maintenance aspect, or toll roads, where you have a maintenance aspect that you have to achieve in order to maintain the system. These bonds are going to be typically sales tax revenue bonds are a gross revenue pledge because you don't have any maintenance. So these bonds will be a gross revenue pledge. These are a couple of key ratios that both investors on the following page, investors and the credit analysts look at. The debt service coverage ratio, which I mentioned, is applicable to the EIC, but you do not have a minimum coverage ratio that you have to maintain. Because the EIC does not have any rate setting ability, you cannot set the tax rate, the sales tax rate. The debt service coverage ratio is not restricted. The additional bonds test ratio is. That requires a minimum debt service coverage ratio in order to issue additional bonds. This is something that that investors, holders of your outstanding bonds really want. It keeps the credit from deteriorating. In this case, the debt service, the additional bonds test for EIC is a 1.5 times coverage. So in theory, the EIC could issue up to the 1.5 times. It would likely be a credit negative for the EIC to do so. We wouldn't encourage it, but the EIC does have additional room to fund additional projects in the future based on the cash flow projections that we are looking at. The following slide is some comments. So these bonds have been rated by Standard & Poor's, one of the three big rating agencies. They received a AAA negative rating with a stable outlook. That is one notch below the city's AA negative. It's one notch below the city's rating of AA. Has a stable outlook, which is better than our federal government right now. But but these are some of the key considerations that they released in their credit opinion. Talking about the stable tax base of the city, strong coverage, 1.5 times additional bonds test on a maximum annual debt service basis. At the time that we showed numbers to Standard & Poor's, the coverage was 2.98 times. Rates have since improved, but we'll take a look at some scenarios here in just a bit where we show you a range based on what we're hoping for you to authorize today. So generally it's all good for the city. The city's great and EIC benefits from that. The next page, we start going into some of our cash flow pro forma. On the electronic version, we're good, never mind. I was thinking that the slide was updated numbers. We provided updated numbers this morning. Rates have moved about 5 basis points away from us. It was a 4.67 nominal impact on coverages. But on the left-hand side, numbers in yellow, we have sales tax revenue estimates that were provided to us by staff. On average, those are growing at less than 1%. I would say that is fairly conservative, very conservative. The non-highlighted numbers beginning in 2034 are growing at 1%. So again, we're trying to stay very conservative on our revenue projections. This is assuming a $20 million bond issuance at this rate, and annual debt service is about 1.58 million. The resulting coverage based on this is about, at a minimum of 3.39 times, occurring in 25. So outstanding coverages well above the additional bonds test. A very strong coverage ratio. Principal payments on these, we are anticipating a 215, 815. Principal and interest payments, 815 being the principal payment. That will give sufficient time to collect sales tax revenues. The slide immediately after this, we have assumed the maximum interest rate of 5.5%. That's going to come here in a bit. We're going to talk about the parameters. But we do not anticipate a interest rate greater than 5.5%. We anticipate it to be significantly less than 5.5%. But staff is going to ask you to approve parameters that limit the tax rate to 5.5%. Cannot exceed 5.5%. So we just wanted to show you that even with this, coverages are still at 3.29 times, 3.26 at a minimum. Annual debt service is about 1.64 million. Earlier in the meeting, it was discussed, and we do not have it in here, but there were several other scenarios that were talked about where 17.5 million was used or 15 million. I don't know that that's necessarily applicable. No? Okay, I won't go into that. Now to talk about what you're being asked to do today. Initially, talk about the timetable of events. Today, November 13th, you're being asked to approve a delegation resolution authorizing the issuance and sale and delivery of bonds. Currently, the proposed pricing date is November 28th. That is the date we would go out into the market, price the bonds, and then on Tuesday, December 19th, the bonds would close and the EIC would receive funds. Well, what is a delegation bond sale? In approving this item, you would be delegating a pricing officer. This would allow that individual, I believe it is designated as the president, the vice president, or the treasurer of the EIC. That person would be involved in the pricing on November 28th and authorize the issuance based on these parameters that are before you today. The delegation is setting a not to exceed set of parameters on 4 items: the maximum interest rate, the maximum principal amount of issuance, the final maturity date, and the expiration of the delegation authority. And the designated officer can only approve if all 4 of those are met. The reason to do this is flexibility. The market, particularly nowadays, the last couple of years, has been extremely volatile. World events change the market on a daily basis. By authorizing this, you would not restrict us to one date, to a date of a board meeting. You would allow us to watch the market, to be able to adjust pricing. If the 28th, if China decides to invade Taiwan over Thanksgiving, 28th is probably not going to be a good day. This would allow us to move that to another day. If some Fed announcement comes out, and Lord knows what happens, this will allow us to move to wherever we need to be and not be restricted to a board day. I believe, down here, it takes 72 hours to post a meeting agenda. So we would be, if you don't approve this parameters, it's going to take us 3 days to get back to in front of you. So the parameters that we're asking, as I mentioned earlier, we're looking at a 5.5% interest rate maximum. We would certainly anticipate that to be much less than that. Currently today, we were at a 4.67. We would ask for a maximum principal amount of 20 million. That can be less, it cannot be more. We would ask for a final maturity date of August 15th, 2043. And the expiration of the delegation authority would be May 12th of 24, approximately 6 months from today. So if the market completely tanks, we would have up to May 12th of 24 to re-enter the market to try to price these bonds without having to come back to the board for approval. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Would you sell these in batches or would it be everything?
It would be all in one go.
Okay. So the timing over the 6 months, that just gives you the chance to time, but your intention is to sell them more quickly than the 6 months?
Yes, ma'am. Our intention would be to sell everything on the pricing date. If November 28th is the perfect date, which we hope it will be, then all 20 million would be sold on that day.
Okay.
Any other questions? At 6 o'clock, I'm going to open the public hearing. Keisha, do we have anyone signed up on this item?
We have one signed up. Bonnie Arnold.
Keep on. Okay. All right. Still 6 o'clock. I'm going to close the public hearing. I do have one question before we make a motion. So the parameters that were mentioned are not specifically laid out in this item, but through approving the item as it's listed on the agenda, we're also approving the parameters. Is that correct?
Yeah, he just went through, yeah, they're all captured.
And they're actually in the resolution itself.
Okay, just not in the item. Okay. All right. Very good.
Mrs. Clarkson, you may want to make it clear that even though you didn't sign up for the public hearing, you can still speak. I don't.
Do I need to reopen it to say that?
Why don't you ask and then you can.
Okay. Is there anyone that wants to speak on this item? It is a public hearing, so you do not have to be signed up to speak. All right. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve item 6B. Okay, we have a motion.
Is it 6C? Or
We're still on. We're still.
6B?
Wishful thinking, Mr. Herring. And a second? Anyone second that item?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand at this time. Okay, and opposed. All right, so we've got 5-1 approves. Thank you. All right. Okay, Mr. Kreiser, this is your item coming up. All right, another public hearing. We're going to have staff presentation and then we'll call for you after that. Okay. Item 6C, consider, and thank y'all for both for being here tonight, spending this time explaining that to us.
And happy retirement. Happy
Yes,
retirement.
thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item 6C, consider economic development project application to the City of Kerrville Economic Improvement Corporation from Light Creek, Inc., in parentheses, Project Mount Saddle, for Economic Improvement Corporation to convey property it owns along the 300 block of Peterson Farm Road, such conveyance to be without any payment to the Economic Improvement Corporation. I'll have a presentation.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm here to talk about Project Mount Saddle. What is it and what's the economic impact behind the project? All right, so a little bit on the project. The company, because we have an NDA with both the company as well as the governor's office, it's confidential, the name of the company. I can say that it's headquartered in Mexico, in one of the industrial cities, not just in Mexico, but in Latin America. Its parent company is a Fortune 1000 company. The industry is in structural manufacturing. Their product is actual advanced construction materials, which is autoclaved, aerated concrete panels. Jobs, we're looking at about 67 direct jobs, 182 indirect, and then 33 induced. So the difference between those is the direct is what's considered the primary jobs, which are the jobs created by the actual company. The indirect are those, let's just say, suppliers that move into the area or some local suppliers. They see an uptick on their activity or they're moving in following the company. Those are the jobs that are created as a result of this particular company. And then the induced is more on the retail and the commercial side. So let's just say a Hobby Lobby or Office Depot or a local restaurant sees more activity as a result of both of the indirect and direct jobs. They start adding jobs. So those are the induced jobs created by the direct ones from the company. Average wages about $56,000 in annual wages. The capex $35 to $40 million. This would be for new construction, and that's about 150,000 square foot facility, which would be, if you could just kind of picture what the Mooney facility looks like, half of that. The Mooney facility is 300,000 square feet. We continue to be in competition with 5 cities, both in Texas and Oklahoma. Hence, that's why the project is confidential and will be for the next few months. until they get to a point where they pick a location. Then we're able to disclose who it is and continue having meetings thereafter. And their clients include Marriott, Hilton, Costco, HEB, and some government buildings. I'd like to say one example is the Austin Convention Center was built using their materials. Okay, so this gives you a little bit of a bird's eye view, more or less, of the location. One of the operations that they have in Mexico and Latin America. I think they have some in Brazil as well. And where they're at, the interior of the facility, you can see it right there. The exterior, that's the actual plant itself. That's the 150,000 square foot facility. And here is a snapshot of what the panels or their products look like. So again, it's power panels, power flooring, slabs, wall paneling, and then fence paneling as well. And again, this is aerated autoclave panels, which is uses a third of the material that a regular cinder block would use. And it's much lighter and has other different characteristics, and is not what you would think as far as when you see like a brick facility. This is not what this is. Here is, there's a lot of information here. So a couple things. One is, again, on the product, you know, it's actually stronger than some of your regular cinder blocks that are out there. The acoustics are very good. It absorbs a lot of the noise, resistant to humidity, thermal. It's fire resistant, which is why they're having to now really locate in Texas, because there's several communities, and I think the state of Illinois are now requiring for multifamily housing to have this particular product. So I didn't know there was a difference between fire resistant and fireproof. I thought it was just both were kind of like the same. But fire resistant is actually the one that takes a higher temperature. So there's now a reason for that. So multifamily now is being required. Hence, this company is in a position where they need to be in the States in order to keep up with that demand. And taking a step back here and looking at the supply chain. So in our industry, in our business, when we recruit a company, we're always keeping an eye out on, you know, what is the supplier effect. So how many companies are they going to be hiring locally? Will they be pulling in other companies? So their the resources that they need, or the raw materials, are silica sand, cement, limestone, aluminum, and then I can't pronounce it, gypsum, something like that. Thank you. The only one that's being imported is aluminum. That one's coming in from Germany. All the other ones are being sourced within a 45 to 50 mile radius. So in addition to the company coming in and having a direct impact as far as the actual jobs that they're creating, they're now going to be buying from our local suppliers, which means they're going to be adding jobs. There's going to be, it's just the value add to the economic output that this company will have by working with local existing suppliers using local raw materials. And here is a hotel in Bernie, and that's what the product looks like. So when I was with this company and we were driving around, I still couldn't put my arms around it, trying to figure out what this was. And the best way I could say, describe it is the, you know, you see those big condo towers and, you know, the bigger cities, and they have these white panels. Well, I for the longest time thought they were like styrofoam panels, but they're not. It's this actual product, and there you can see what it is. Okay, so here's the proposed site, and there is my attempt at drawing it on a Google map. I don't know why it says Brazil, peacock, bass, fly fishing. It always pops up as that. I would be interested. So it's in the 200 block of Peterson Farm Road, so it's next to the airport. It's owned by this board, and it's intended for industry, that property, and for the creation of primary jobs, which this company fits that to the T. It's got access to all utilities, hence that's why this property was on their radar. Connectivity to State Highway 16, 5 miles from the interstate. The proposed main entrance for this operation would be via Al Mooney Road, and then grabbing a little piece of Peterson Farm Road. So there is some work being done by our local leadership as far as planning for road improvements. specifically to handle some of the truck traffic that would be coming in for this operation. And again, the city and the county are looking at ways on how to get this done. And again, I just want to mention that the report that I gave earlier was basically because of this. There's a lot of activity out by the airport. There's 2 other companies going into the airport area. There's going to be more truck traffic out there. Not separate from this one, with all the activity that we're seeing out there. So again, this is just really enhancing and helping grow that industrial zone out there. Okay, now looking at the numbers. As far as this project, there's more than $46 million in economic activity for this particular project, 12.7 million in value add, total of 58 million in total economic output. So the jobs, as I mentioned earlier, the 67, we're looking at about 6.2 to about 6.5 in just payroll alone. So that's money that doesn't exist today in our community. That's money that this company is going to be paying our Kerrville residents for the next 5 years going into their pockets. And then we have the indirect jobs, the induced jobs, 282 total for job creation. Now, talking about the payroll alone, that is a huge reason why we do what we do, to provide job opportunities for people that are looking to move up in their economic class. This is exactly what this is. It fits it to the T. And now these people, and I'll grab from Kildare Mountain Manufacturing, you walk into that plant, a company that was not here a few years ago, and now you walk in, they have about 100 employees, making just a little bit under what these guys are paying here. And you see the organizational chart, and for the exception of a few people in management, they're all people from Kerrville. And I'm like, it feels pretty good. You're like, wow, they have now a great opportunity at having a good job. Now they have disposable income in their pockets that they can use for local businesses, Main Street USA. That's how you start really filling in the gaps and bringing in companies like these guys that become the drivers for our small businesses and then just for the total economic output. Then the other one is the local and state tax. This one's over 10 years, not 5 years. So the county would be receiving about $757,000 in property taxes from this particular operation. Another 1.25 million to the city, and then 1.66 to the ISD. So that's a total of 4.43 million in total in local and state taxes. Again, money that's not here right now. And then the other thing, so it's interesting because, this project, it checks off all the boxes as far as the value add. You've got the direct salaries, you've got the impact that it's going to have to the local suppliers, because you've got these local suppliers already looking at, okay, now they got to start beefing up their operations just for this particular project. And then you've got, your local and state taxes. So that's money that's going to the city coffers. The other one, which you don't find a lot in manufacturing operations, is that their point of sale is going to be, if they pick Kerrville, is going to be here in Kerrville, which means everything that they sell here is going to be directly from their operation. They're not going to be using a distributor like other manufacturing operations. So in their first 5 years, they're planning, by year 5, they expect to be at about $35 million in sales, which that puts them over the next 5 years at $1.32 million in sales tax revenue to the city, $660,000 for the EIC and the county each. That's a total of $2.64 million. And that's sales tax revenues. That's actually, as money goes directly to this organization, separate from, again, the state taxes, local taxes, and then the money that goes into the pockets of the people that are going to be working at that operation, as well as the suppliers. Okay, sectors that will be impacted by Project Mount Saddle, cement manufacturing, the supply chain associated with that, the local raw materials, as I had mentioned as well. KPUB is in a very good position. That is the 5th part of this particular project, and that's why I enjoy. I've worked in communities, including in this one, that have a municipally owned utility, because you get another value add. So Mike Whitler is very excited about the project because it's not a small load. It's a good sized load, but not big enough where they can't handle it. They said we can handle it now. This allows us to grow in increments. And again, that's a municipally owned utility. What that means is that money stays yet again here in our community. Metal fabrication, welders. I put down there retail activity. Again, that's the Main Street effect in our small businesses. Logistics, the real estate, you'll see some activity as far as on the commercial and industrial side. And then the natural gas. And the natural gas is actually, that particular property has access to the natural gas that they need. They are a huge consumer of natural gas. So that's how Kerrville ended up getting on the radar for this particular project. And again, we're in competition with some other cities. So there's a value add there again. And then the other one, services, machinery, maintenance, so on and so forth. Now we start talking about the entrepreneurs here in Kerrville, or small businesses that will be providing certain services. They need certain technicians. That's where entrepreneurs come and play, and they'll start figuring out. So again, it just checks a lot of boxes as far as the economic impact. Okay, now closing here. The partners in the deal. There's two stakeholder families with this particular project, and both of them, one's listed on the Fortune 500 and the other one's on the Forbes list of richest industrial and philanthropic families in North America. You can see there that is actually very similar to what you would see here in Kerrville with the Peterson Medical Center. Both of these families have certain centers, facilities, major facilities in big cities in both the U.S. and Mexico that are named after them. So again, this is well, there's a lot of opportunities down the road as far as what they've been doing in their respective communities, which I anticipate they will do the same here. And again, this lead was sent to us by the Office of the Governor, in addition to the support that they're providing for this as well. And I'll close with this. In economic development, we tend to be pretty competitive. And every organization and every community has kind of like their trophy case, Super Bowl case, trophy case, and communities typically are looked at as far as headquarters. How many headquarters are in your respective community? We've got James Avery, Mooney's still there doing some good things. It's interesting because whenever I'm outside of Texas and I mention Kerrville, you'd be surprised how many people say, "Oh, Mooney." I'm like, "You know where that's at?" I'm like, "Oh, it's in Kerrville." So the H.E. Butt Family Foundation, I know somebody who was here today. I mean, that is significant. And then Killdeer. Killdeer is, we're very involved with that particular project, and they're at their new facility, and they've said, look, here just in the near future, that is going to become our Texas headquarters. And then the other one's Project Mount Saddle. We don't have, a logo or the actual name yet. That's pending, but they've said, depending what location we choose, if it's Kerrville, that is going to be the U.S. headquarters, for that particular operation. For a community our size, we have 5 headquarters like these, or a community of 25, 50,000 for Kerr County. It really sets us apart, and it just really starts drawing the attention of other major corporations. So I guess what I'm saying is a big deal. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions from, yes, okay. All right, thank you, Gil. This is a public hearing, 6:19. I will open public hearing. Is there anyone signed up to speak on this item?
Yes, Bruce Kaiser.
Hope you can overlook my ignorance of your protocols. This is the first meeting I've ever.
I'm glad you're here. It's fine.
Anyway, what I'm here for is to ask you folks to reconsider modifying and accommodating the roads for the heavy traffic I'm afraid you may be spending money that may not head anywhere. The reason I say this is not because Light Creek is a bad company. That's beside the point. But the idea of adding another cement factory to that part of Kerrville is just kind of weird. Right now, we've already got 5 quarries within a 5-mile radius of that area of Kerrville. Now, 1 quarry is enough to mess up the air for a 5-mile range. And we're looking at maybe having 6 of them within 1 5-mile range. And the problem is that a lot of the particulate in the air is invisible. You can't see it, you can't smell it, but when you breathe it, it stays in you. It's not organic. It's rock. It's the crushed limestone. It's the silica sand. Whatever ingredients they use, and it's not good. When excuse me, refer back to my notes here. Medical histories and research leave no doubt of increased incidences of asthma, lung cancer, dementia, and fetal abnormalities associated with exposure to these tiny little particles. Years of exposure to children's immature lungs puts them at great risk. Fly ash, one of the ingredients which can be used to produce the light concrete, is especially one of the worst lung threats there can be. Now, if there is no wind, the emission clouds would hover over these cement factories. Wharton Road, Guadalupe Heights, the VA Medical Center, the Lions Camp, my little Castlecombe community, the Creekwood Ranches on Creekwood Road would all be within this particulate cloud. And there are also many individual families that may not be represented here right now. But let's say the wind is blowing. If it's going in our typical prevailing wind southeast to northwest, it's going to carry these emissions toward Tivy, Hal Peterson Middle School, the Summit, and even the proposed Lennar housing. I guess my biggest question for you is, are you sure Light Creek will be able to obtain the necessary TCEQ air quality permits? From what I understand, schools, churches, and residences within a 3,000-foot radius of the plant will raise serious concerns during the permitting process. Now, Light Creek has the Castlecombe community across the street from them.
Mr. Kreiser, that's your time. Could you summarize and?
Sure. The church that I mentioned is sharing a property line. I'm sure that this is a good company, but it doesn't need to be in a residential area. There's just too many threats. And one more aside, the closest air quality control inspection place that we have is in South San Antonio. So we really don't know what is in the air around us.
Thank you.
Brad Barnett.
Good evening, Brad Barnett, Kerrville Area Chamber of Commerce, 1700 Sidney Baker, Suite 100. I am also a board member of KEDC, so I want to thank Gil and Katie for the work they've done on this. I've really been impressed as we've met with the leadership for the Mount Saddle project, because their corporate culture and the family culture for both of these groups, I think, is very much a good fit for our community. And I think that's really important to look at as we're bringing in potential new jobs. We want to make sure that it's a good fit. So I think Gil and Katie have done a phenomenal job, and I think this will be a great asset for our community. Thanks.
Peggy McKay.
I didn't sign up.
That's okay. We'll go through we've got one person now. Is Mrs. McKay, is she the last one signed up? Okay, so after Mrs. McKay speaks. Yeah.
Peggy McKay, Kerrville. I didn't see a plant where it showed the placement of this facility on the land. I keep hearing it's adjacent to the airport. Well, the property is, but they can't build there because that's where it floods. And the only place I can see they're going to be able to build is right across the street from the Castle Cone subdivision. Flooding is a problem. It's been a problem since 2011 when a former EIC board decided that the development of the property to bring it up to standards would be more costly. And I know we're going to split the cost with the county, but the county has limited what they'll pay. And in the information, it says that the design will probably change because of the road condition where it floods, which means the city will be paying for that increased cost. The county will not participate then. And also, the road, I worry about the road. When it's under construction, will the vehicles be coming from the high school area? Will they be coming in from the airport area? This neighborhood's been there for years. This is more like a case of business encroaching on a residential area. It's residential all around there except for the airport. And I wonder about the people who have been there for years. They've paid taxes, they've paid EIC sales taxes, and it's not just a few $100s. If you take what they have paid over years, it's going to be up there in the same amount of money that we're going to be realizing for this company. The company, I think, is fine. The placement is wrong. When it floods, how will they move their product? The only way to move it is to go by the high school and the subdivision and the church down the street. There's no other out. I wonder also about the water requirements. What is the water need of this industry when Wells and Eastern County still don't have a supply of water? They're still dry. And I also have not seen anything about a traffic flow, which is typical of every new development. We do not see the traffic flow outside the actual perimeter of the property. And if they're paying $26 an hour, which is the average county wages, that sounds pretty good, but they're saying they'll pay more. Okay for the company, no for the location.
She covered everything else.
Okay, all right. We are in a public hearing. Is there anyone else that cares to speak on this matter before we close the public hearing? If you'll state your name and address since we don't have that written down for the record.
I'm Rick Phipps with, I live in Castle Cone as well at 100 Oxford Place. I kind of go with what Bruce said, and there's been no studies on the pollution aspect of this. And that is my biggest concern. 60% of Castle Cone are senior citizens, elderly, retired. You have the high school right down the street. And you can't tell me that the 55 employees, or however many they have, are going to go all the way around to get into their plant. They're going to come right down our street and go into the right past Castle Cone with all the kids and everybody else that goes through there. I think it's a bad move. I like the fact that we're trying to get some industry in here. I'm all for that. I've been here 41 years. I'm almost a citizen. So, but I think that the location is in a bad place, or they could reroute it around the airport property and through that area, perhaps, maybe way back in there. But I think first thing they need to do is get a study on the pollution factor, because we have lots of folks that are going to be affected by it. The hospital is close by, and then the other object that we've been on stage 4 for months. Where are they going to get the water? Is that coming from the city? And if so, how much? That has not been discussed either. Thank you very much.
Last chance. At 6:30, I'm going to close the public hearing, and there were several questions raised, and I would like to ask if there are any members of staff that can speak to any or all of these issues that were raised before we consider this.
will do my best to answer every one of them. I think I got most of them in my head. One of the biggest questions that came up, not only in previous discussions here, but city council discussions, as well as county commissioners court this morning, was water. Right. So as a part of their process, Light Creek is a water user, and so to the extent that, so at the location where this is at currently, this is the end of our water line. So we have to, in order not to have stale water and have TTHMs or Tetra something, science, yeah, Stuart would know the exact name of it. In order not to have that, we have to blow that water off to the tune of about 30,000 gallons per day. And so because that's the end of our line, that's TCEQ requirement for that. So with this company coming in, they would now be a user of that water system, and we would no longer have to do that. They also recycle the water that they use. However, that doesn't diminish the fact that they are a water user. So I would estimate that they would have anywhere between 30 to 50,000 gallons going through their system per day. But I don't know exactly how much that is, because we need to know like what their recycling capacity is. From an environmental standpoint, in order for their plant to be running and operational, they have to have that approved through the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. So they wouldn't be able to get authorization to connect to our system until they had that certification in place. So at this point in their due diligence process, they've hired Terracon, which is a company that handles exactly that. They go do soil testing out there, what's currently in place, and then they have to take the use that they propose out there and put that all into their submission to TCEQ. So they're going to have to get approvals through the state before they could do anything. And from Ms. McKay's comments about the floodplain, so like anywhere else in the city, you're not allowed to build in the floodplain. It's not allowed. And so the only thing that would be allowed would be a parking structure, parking lot, essentially, for their cars. So anything that's permanent wouldn't be allowed to be inside the floodplain. We don't allow it. I don't know that I spoke to each of the questions.
I have a question that might clear up something.
Yes, sir.
This is not a quarry.
No, oh, sorry, yeah, yes, this is not, so we have, there are several aggregate producers who dig in the ground, produce a product, and then sell that. These folks would be taking those products, combining them in a plant that's inside, and creating their concrete product. So this is not a quarry. They're not going to be digging. They're not going to be creating dust from digging. They're going to be bringing those materials into their facility, combining those materials, and shipping out a product. So they will not be, it's not an aggregate mine. Yes, sir.
What's going to stop their trucks from using Peterson Road instead of coming up Highway 27 and going in the road that y'all are planning on building for?
So we'll place provisions within our development agreements that require it. Does everybody follow that? Does a new employee that starts there follow that? Absolutely not. That's where we get involved. So I think what you would practically see.
But there's going to be lots of truck traffic.
So
all the equipment, all the stuff, supplies they're bringing in.
So none of that. So I would say that, you know, to the person who spoke earlier about like employees coming in the morning and driving through there, that's something that we will kind of consistently have to work through with the company and say, hey, everybody's got to go through Almoni. From a truck traffic standpoint, that's going to be a requirement. We're going to be working with the county to improve that road and to improve Almoni, and they will have to go through there. Those are going to be things that we're going to consider violations of our agreement, and we'll have to work through the enforcement mechanisms on that. But the employee traffic, I think, will be the one that we'll have to kind of consistently work on. But the truck traffic is going to be an absolute requirement that they go that other route. However you want to do this. I'll take questions from y'all or from everybody here, or make Gil answer all the questions.
Is it a previous question that you asked that wasn't answered?
No, I haven't.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Okay, let's assume.
Could you stand up for the microphone, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Taping it.
And we have to record it.
Okay, Bruce Kreiser again. If we assume then that the limestone can be quarried and crushed and handled without creating dust, is it possible to have the road not come up to Castlecombe? Remember where the end of the water line used to be, not too far from the Mooney approach? What if the road were to go in that way and not come clear up to the neighborhood? Yeah,
Straight into their property.
right from Mooney Road, right straight in.
So in a perfect world, we would have them do that. The topography and the challenges that you face in that creek bed that's right there where all those trees are at just make it too much of a challenge. We worked through situations and scenarios with them where we said, let's detour this as far, as close to Al Mooney Road as we could possibly get. Ultimately, you know, we're gonna have to find a balance in there, but forcing them to build bridges through there that's gonna be millions upon millions to kind of cover that. That's a wide swath of low water crossings where it's gonna flood. We have to strike a balance.
And Mr. Morris, and to be clear, although this is a bigger part of what we're doing tonight, what we're actually doing tonight is just one piece. We have not, EIC has not been asked to fund anything that relates to the road, at least at this time, and I don't anticipate that, although it could happen at any time. So your comments are well made and well taken, but for tonight, we're considering the land and whether we want to provide this land to the company. So just for clarification, but that is a piece, and that would be county and city, and then if it comes back for any reason to EIC to consider as well for the road. Okay.
Madam President, if I may, Gil may want to comment on it. I think, Bruce, to your comments, this is not a cement manufacturing facility. It's not a crushing facility. There will be no fly ash. It's a totally different manufacturing process. This facility uses those things as inputs, and it's a relatively high technology process they have for assembly of these products. I mean, I fully appreciate the questions and concerns that you and others have asked or commented about, but I don't think you should be concerned about it. I think that you've already heard comments from Michael about the need that they're going to have to meet all the state standards and so forth.
Do you have any follow-up?
Yes, I would like to add a few things. Thank you, John, and Madam Chair, members of the board, and for you all being here as well. So on the environmental, from what I can hear, I mean, this is not a done deal. And let's say they do pick Kerrville and there is an announcement, that starts the environmental phase. You know, that's a $500,000, study that they have to fund, and that takes 6 to 8 months. And then they go through TCEQ. That's another lengthy process. So there's still a lot of work to be done to where, yeah, they can come back and say, you know what, you can't be there. I mean, they're not going to allow that to happen. The road, to your point about Peterson, they're very conscious about that. They said they are not going to use that road. It's their drivers, and they said we don't want to be put in a position where, yeah, we're going to be driving through a school in a neighborhood. That's where the Al Mooney option came, because that's the path of, well, it's not the path of least resistance. The easier one is Peterson Farm Road, but everybody's going the extra mile, no pun intended, to get that particular road up and running specifically for these guys, because that's what they're requesting and that's what they need. And then lastly, I'll make myself available to you all. I'll share my number off screen, and I'll be glad to meet with you all either one-on-one or in a group setting to provide some more information on the project, and at some point in time also get the company to start meeting with you all as well. That's the right thing to do, and I'm happy to do that as well. Just grab me before I leave.
All right, board, any more comments, questions? Okay, so we are going to entertain a motion to approve item 6C as it was presented.
So moved.
We have
Second.
a motion and a second. All right, all in favor, please let me know by raising your hand. Motion carries. Okay, thank you. All right, we're gonna move on to item 7A. Now, I would like, is this why you're here? Oh, okay. Oh, okay, okay, so, okay, I just wanted to make sure if you needed to speak, I didn't want you to, because this is amazing. My children would never, ever sit here that long. I'm really just kind of amazed, so, okay, all right. All right, so we are on item 7A. This is a consideration and possible action. It's not a public hearing. This is just to consider a funding application from Habitat for Humanity, Kerr County, in the amount not to exceed $2,260,000 in infrastructure assistance for the proposed Mariposa residential subdivision. So again, this is not an approval. This is a consideration item. If passed, it will be put on a future agenda for possible approval.
Thank y'all for taking the time tonight. It's been a long evening, and I owe you all a couple of cocktails. Mary Campana is waiting patiently behind me to come talk to you all about their exciting new concept project. This is an item that we were able to get from Mary at the beginning of this month. We were able to put the GO team together. They reviewed the request, quite a bit of back and forth, and Kyle Bond made a recommendation that this push forward for you all to consider. We'll say that we pushed this through finance, talked about this with Trina and with Julie, and in consideration of all the other items that were discussed tonight, in addition to the Lennar items that you all have discussed. There is room in y'all's budgets, provided we talk these through over a couple of fiscal years to withstand. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mary and then be here to answer any questions y'all have at the end. Okay.
Oh, so thanks for hanging in there, y'all. Hello, my name is Mary Campana. It is my privilege to be the Executive Director of Habitat for Humanity, Kerr County. I'm honored for the opportunity to bring a voice to this meeting that represents those voices that have not been heard. It's the voice of Ernest and Eva, a retired couple who adopted their 4 nieces and nephews so they didn't go into the foster care system. Ernest and Eva, the family, because of their Habitat house, they were able to adopt these kids. They now have a 4-bedroom house that's mold-free, that has heat during the winter, and a safe community for the children to play. It is also a voice of the X-ray technician yearning to return to Kerrville and to work at Peterson Healthcare, yet faced with the obstacle of unaffordable housing and lengthy apartment waiting list, the desire to contribute is hindered by this lack of living options. It's the voice of one of the 630 Habitat volunteers that provide over 7,800 hours of volunteer service. Help me give a voice to all these underserved families that live and work in Kerrville and the 123 families that have received a Habitat home since 1989. During my first few weeks at Habitat Kerr, a loud cry for increased affordable housing was unmistakable. After numerous strategic sessions, the Habitat for Humanity Kerr County's board courageously embraced this call, initiating a comprehensive 5-year growth plan to tackle this pressing concern. Our plan is focused on scaling Habitat's affordable housing programs, charting a path to financial sustainability, and maximizing land efficiency. I stand before you not just to request the $2.6 million investment in Habitat Mariposa community, but to propose an opportunity to help scale the operations of Habitat Kerr County, an opportunity to empower local affordable housing partnerships, and an opportunity to help build an attainable housing community with an innovative housing mix. The Mariposa community embodies Habitat's bold vision for tomorrow to become the local leader in attainable housing home ownership. The Mariposa community is not just another housing development. It's an innovative solution providing 47 attainable homes that will be built in a 3-year construction period after infrastructure is complete. The community will include a mix of 11 traditional Habitat homes and 36 workforce homes. This diverse housing mix will provide attainable housing for a wide range of income needs within the community. The Mariposa community showcases unique single-family homes with sophisticated, innovative designs that will blend into the existing neighborhood. The homes will feature contemporary enhancements, incorporating masonry, stucco, a variety of house designs and elevations. Habitat will govern an active HOA and architecture review committee to ensure the neighborhood remains a haven for all residents. Habitat purchased this 8.5-acre site due to its convenient central location and the manageable topography. Leveraging an existing plat, Michael Welburn Engineering designed the best path forward, skillfully navigating drainage challenges and limited road connections. Michael Welburn worked with 3 other developers on the same plot of land, and the same design came for every one of them. 47 lots vary from 45 feet to 60 feet, encompassing lots in different shapes and sizes, even including pie-shaped lots for an attractive neighborhood layout. Each home will feature a 6-foot fence and landscape design, enhancing curb appeal. The preliminary plat has been approved by Planning and Zoning, and no variances were requested. Habitat's 5-year growth plan revealed that we need to expand our affordable housing product mix, which led to the addition of workforce housing homes for teachers, first responders, nurses, firefighters. Habitat will replicate a proven Habitat H2 construction model, an attainable home ownership model refined by Habitat affiliates across the country. We will adapt the best practices for this moderate income home ownership model and tailor it to fit Kerrville's needs. I was involved in these same type of products in Austin with Austin Habitat. The workforce housing homes will be constructed and sold on the open market for families earning 80% of the median family income. The families will secure affordable mortgages through third-party financing and will not have sweat equity component. The 36 homes will be subcontracted with local builders and contractors and have a minimum amount of volunteer labor. Our timeline preliminary plat has been approved. Engineering review of the civil construction plans is ongoing. We expect to complete the infrastructure by the end of 2024, and vertical construction begins in 2025. Habitat's partnerships are not just collaborations. They are pillars of our strength. By joining forces with over 16 local contractors and builders and 6 local financial companies, we forge a collective voice against the housing crisis. Through collaboration, we're not just cutting costs, we're amplifying resources, expediting delivery to provide affordable homes. The EIC partnership is a catalyst for change. It is an investment in shaping a unified community collaboration. Habitat is creating a new financial model that is designed to be dynamic and sustainable. By engaging third-party lenders and selling homes in phases, we are crafting a self-sustaining cycle that fuels future attainable housing projects. We plan to build the workforce homes for $245,000 and to sell them for $272,000, which is the HUD defined as affordable price. The $48,000 investment per house will empower Habitat to step up our building construction, accelerate scaling, and adapt our financial model. This request represents 14% of the entire budget. The EIC investment will help Habitat build faster and add an attainable workforce housing product. It'll fuel the first step in our journey to reduce Habitat's dependency on public funding. It'll generate revenue to reinvest into the next attainable housing community. Without the full request, we will need to pivot in the following areas. We'll need to reconfigure our infrastructure plan to include a staged approach, encounter increased cost and a negative impact on the project timeline, and evaluate our capacity to add workforce housing products in a timely manner. The economic impact of Habitat Mariposa project isn't confined to numbers on the balance sheet. It's about a promise of change. It's about scaling our operations, nurturing collaboration, and fostering sustainability to offer relief to our community. Mariposa is projected to generate an economic impact of $16 million for Kerrville. It is also about homes, jobs, and partnerships with local businesses. Habitat's business model stands apart from the for-profit builders that are in that all of the resources acquired through this new approach will be channeled directly back into the Kerrville community. Empowered by the $2.26 million capacity investment from EIC, along with the steadfast support from the local builders and contractors, Habitat is elevating our attainable housing model. The EIC partnership and investment will help us scale our attainable housing program, fuel Habitat's road to sustainability, empower the local community collaborations, and assist Habitat's innovation to add workforce housing. Thank you for your consideration, and thank you for considering partnering with us.
Thank you, Mary. Okay. So, yes, questions for Mary, for staff?
Mary, I'm Gary Cochran, we've met.
Yes.
Primary part of your presentation is fuel Habitat's road to substantiality.
Sustainability.
What does that mean?
It means by selling those houses third party, we'll be funded upfront instead of us carrying the mortgage over 30 years. So that investment can roll to the next community. So it creates that sustainability that this project will build other revenue from it.
So I guess what I'm asking is, and I'm not being judgmental one way or the other, I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around it. So does that mean the next time you go forward to do this, you're going to be coming back to EIC to pay for the infrastructure?
We hope not to. We can't guarantee that we wouldn't, but our goal is not to. Our goal is to keep that sustainability rolling. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm trying, again, I haven't had a chance to, first we saw it was this weekend and we didn't have the numbers and whatnot, so it's all, I'm trying to drink fast.
I understand.
So there's 37 workforce?
47 total.
But 36 of those are workforce?
Yes, sir.
You're going to sell those for approximately $272,000?
Right.
What's your approximate cost? $240,000?
$245,000. So we'll
you got
$29,000 per house.
$30,000 per house over however many that was. What did I say earlier?
It's almost $1 million.
About $1 million.
So that'll fuel the next deal, whether to buy land or to pay for infrastructure, that kind of thing.
So it's not, and again, I'm not being negative. It's probably not 100%.
Right. I don't want to say it's 100% sustainable, but it's our goal to get there. It's our goal to become sustainable.
Gotcha.
So it's the first step to get there. And as we attract more investors and more revenue, that will also help with that process.
So basically you're going in the home building business.
Yes. Well, we already are in the home building business,
Yeah,
but
but-
we're going to be developer.
Yeah, developers are not just providing housing. You're going to be, and I get that. And I'm not against it. I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around.
Yeah, it is. When we're adding another affordable housing for moderate income versus the low income that we've been focusing on now. And that's a different model as far as our homeowners of 0% interest loan over 30 years. This would be third party at the beginning.
And you don't have to service all those loans?
Right.
Aren't you in effect creating a revolving loan process?
And help me to understand what you're asking.
Well, isn't it, you're gonna circulate the money back into your project, your forward projects, correct?
Yes. Yes, it is. It's a upfront capital to be able to roll to the next. Yes.
Hi, I would like to review this PowerPoint at some time. Would you be able to supply it?
Sure, I can send that, and I had another one that was developed for the proposal too, so I can forward both if that's helpful.
The slides were full of a lot of information, so I'd like to review that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds great.
Yeah, if you could get that to Keisha, she could email it to us.
Okay. Okay.
Let me ask you this, is there anyone signed up to speak on this item?
Yes.
Okay.
We have 6, I believe. And, Darcy Presley.
Well, obviously, I would like not to speak because you guys are still considering it. Basically, we have been having conversations with the Habitat for Humanity Board and Mary Campagna and architects and a few others. And it's been an ongoing process. We're just trying to get some things clarified. I live at Weston Home Place, which is going to be the road that goes through our neighborhood will go into the new Mariposa development. And then they want to continue that infrastructure road all the way up to Bow Lane, which would make it a pretty much straight shot between East Main and Singing Wind. And up until recently, we just got clarification from fire marshals, from surveyors, and from somebody from the City Hall courthouse that said that we didn't have to there doesn't necessarily need to be a road that goes all the way through there. It could, which would save money on them spending for the infrastructure and their loan and all that, was just they could have an emergency fire gate, and that would be sufficient. At this point, I mean, you guys are still considering whatever they're proposing, so I guess I'm really gonna wait to hear what your decision is before maybe we come back with some more facts and things, but hopefully we can continue having some conversations with them, because as a neighborhood that's going to be directly affected, our house values, loss of taxable income for the city, and things like that probably needs to be considered, because the houses being built will not be like ours, so it will affect our values, and it will affect taxes coming in. So, but we've never said we were against Habitat for Humanity. We just want to be able to work with them. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. I just want to make sure that everybody knew that we have been trying. So.
Good.
Thank you.
Glenn Andrew.
Greetings, board. Thank you for the opportunity. And Glenn Andrew, live at 355 Little Cumbria. It is an honor to stand before you, before Kerrville's EIC, and advocate for granting the Habitat for Humanity Kerr County's request. In the highest possible terms, I support the funding of this project. You have the financial justification, and you know the need for affordable and workforce housing. I will not needlessly further discuss these items. I believe this project captures the best aspects of investing in our community. It is a true private-public endeavor, addressing a critical need. I put private in quotes here, recognizing that it's habitat and citizens, as opposed to, some corporation. Habitat for Humanity in Kerr County has a long, successful history of addressing affordable housing, and now offers to bring this experience and expertise forward to address the workforce housing need. And I might add that they have been successful in using EIC money in developing the current large development just a little ways from this area in the Glen McGinnis area. As you well know, Habitat for Humanity Kerr County utilizes local contractors and local volunteers to build homes which literally change lives. Home ownership is a near universal desire. Having worked on site for hundreds of hours and an honor to be a past member of the board, the quality and love which is built into each of these homes is of high standard. The positives of this project are many. They include to help address both affordable and workforce housing needs, enable further public investments through volunteer labor to construct portions of this project, local contractors and local labor force usage, public-private teaming, and future real estate tax benefits. The idea of using public funds coupled with additional private investments, neighbors helping neighbors, families making sweat equity investments in their future, addressing known housing needs, and increasing future real estate tax base is an all-around winner, or at least in the view of this guy from Gervin, Texas. And if you can find it on a map, I'll buy you supper. This is my opinion. It's a worthy and needed investment in the EIC funding. I hope you will positively evaluate this request and fully fund it. Thank you for your time.
Chuck Kemp?
My goodness.
Well, thank you. I'm a resident and a homeowner as well as Darcy at Weston Home Place. It was quite enlightening when I heard about all the quality of life issues. And that's one of the things that we're concerned about. And we've talked with Habitat about that. Has not really been resolved. But this has been informative because essentially, you're right, sir, is now the city is bankrolling, providing funding for infrastructure for a developer. They're going to create the 35, 36 houses, make a profit, and all this sounds great. The only thing that's a problem is it seems like the city taxpayers and the city residents are going to pick up the tab for this $2.6 million. Or $2.26 million, excuse me. Now, just as a taxpayer, I don't like that. If you want to have a charity, that's very well and good. But
Please address the board.
Excuse me?
Please address the board and not the audience.
Okay, all right. But therein, I think it's a problem. And already, and I've kept up with the news and so forth, please correct me if I'm wrong, but there are 2,000 houses and apartments being built or approved right now. We have I've read the 2018 long-range water supply problem. You should know more than I do about it. We have a huge water problem. Future population, grow the population. All those things. And I just don't think you should approve it. If it was well, that's it. It's bad for us who live there. It's very bad for our neighbors to the north, where they want to open up the road and so forth. There are solutions to that. Now we've asked them, can we get together and try to come up with some solutions that are good for everyone? They've heard us, but that has not happened. But just based on the economics, I don't see why you're considering it if you wouldn't provide the infrastructure for a farmer builder to develop that land. Why are you doing it for them? They're only going to be able to build if everything goes right. Now the Maud Jennings, they've been on that for 14 years. You're taking a risk.
Okay, it's your time.
Huh?
Time.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
Peggy McKay?
Peggy McKay, Kerrville. Most of my questions were answered when the slides went up, but I must have been out to lunch. I didn't know anything about this, so everything that I was looking at, now there's even more questions because I'm a numbers person, and all the numbers are changing. But the one thing on here was that if the city has 2.260 or EIC, involved and there's 47 homes, that means each home will get the equivalent of $48,000 in some form. So if this was a charity group category, now we're into almost a developer group. And then I sat there and wondered, how much money have we put into Lennar and various other builders? And what does that cost per home? Maybe this idea of that you have here would be cheaper. Just give each one $48,000, and in the long run, we won't have these $1 million bonds. Now, I'm not being critical or trying to be facetious, but what are the numbers? What's a comparison for per home for Lennar and like developers compared to $48,000 for Habitat home? I'm with this gentleman. I'm uneasy that that government is getting into private business and trying to combine the two when they operate very differently. So I've got a lot more to do with the numbers, but it just doesn't feel right. Thank you.
Jeremy Walther.
Jeremy Walther, my wife Maya and I, several lifetimes ago, lived in a development that included Habitat for Humanity as one of the builders in this development. And it was a program that was largely geared towards first-time home buyers. The city was involved, Habitat was involved, and 3 other private home builders were involved. And so I wanted to share our experiences as 2 people at one point in our life who lived directly next door to 2 Habitat families. We moved into that house flanked by Willie Mae on one side and Sarah on the other. They were both single moms that were working. And our house was done as their house was being built. And so we got to see every day the way that those houses were built, the care that went into the construction, those Saturday crazy blitz build days where all these volunteers came. But the most impactful and most profound part of the experience was to get to know the families that lived there. This was maybe 60 single family houses in this development. Maybe 20, 25 of them were Habitat families. And the dynamic of that neighborhood was beautiful because there was pride. Everyone looked after each other. Everyone took care of their property. And it actually allowed us the equity that we were able to build into that house after 2 to 3 years to sell our own property at a significant profit to then roll into another house. And we were on our way. And we think that because of the care that those families, including the Habitat families, put into their house, it was directly resulting in the rising of property values all around that area. And that was our experience, and I wanted to share that with everybody. And we fully support this project and hope you all do too. Thank you.
There are no other signs.
No other speakers? Okay. I just, not speaking to the project, but just to clarify what EIC is and how those funds come. EIC is funded by a 50-cent sales tax. It is not funded by property tax. EIC is not part of P&Z, which is your plating process. I know you guys have been working through that with them. And so we are a separate body. We're not the city council. So I just wanted to clarify that, and then I'll open it up for questions. But I think we probably have a couple of well, we have 3 options. Obviously, we can move to approve the consideration. Now, that's not approving the project, but if we approve a consideration, that means it will go to a public hearing at next meeting, where we will then decide if we want to go forward with that. I seems that you know, this information is new to a lot of people, so we may decide, and I'll look to Mike for this, if we want to table this so that we have more time to review and ask questions before we come back. Either whoever wants to ask that, or obviously we can deny that request at this time to move it forward. So.
Madam Chair and Board, I just want to clarify another piece. Thank you for clarifying the ESC funding and where.
Oh, right, and I was going to say, and it can be used for two purposes primarily, which is infrastructure and quality of life. Those are the two purposes. Sorry.
No, yes,
Yeah.
and the other piece I wanted to clarify was the city piece was
Economic
when it
development.
comes to plating process, when it comes to planning and zoning, we're as the city are limited and restricted by the state law. So when it comes to certain plats, when it comes to preliminary plats, final plats, there's only so much that a city can do. And so, Mary had pointed out that there's no variances for this, which means that it falls in line with our ordinances and it falls in line with everything that we're doing. So really shy of everything going through with the prelim plats, the final plats, and their private property owners, regardless of whom they are, there's not really much a city can do in going in and saying no on private property and private property rights. So just wanted to clarify that. Once it goes through planning and zoning, if it's good, state law pretty much dictates that it moves forward on the private property side.
Madam President,
Yes.
I think it seems to me that at a minimum, we ought to create a procedure to keep this thing alive. And it's a very worthy proposal, I think. I think that the comments that Glenn Andrew made and Jeremy made are these are folks that are well known in our community, have a lot of experience with Habitat. Seeing this on the agenda was a whole new thing for me, but it seems to me we all know we have a housing problem in this community, like most communities in this country. And this appears to be creative and innovative, and I think that we ought to, at a minimum, create a process to keep this alive and perhaps get more information on it. But I think it's worthy of further consideration.
I would second that. I mean, previous Habitat board member from 100 years ago, president of the board 100 years ago, big supporter of Habitat, but this is all new.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to look at the numbers. I've got to see what it's going to affect our cash flow, particularly after the action that was taken earlier this evening. So I would like to either, whether it goes to the executive sessions or we table it and have some more opportunity to work through the numbers. Certainly not saying no by any stretch of the imagination.
And I would also personally like to hear from Kyle as a member of the GO team as to their considerations and recommendations moving the project forward, since he's not here tonight. So
I agree with everything that y'all have said, yes.
Yeah, I'm happy to follow the lead too.
So I guess what the consensus is to get more information, whether that's in the next month before our next meeting, or if we want to table it and have specific questions come back.
Let's see if Greg had anything.
Oh, I'm sorry, Greg, I forgot about you. Can you hear me? Do you have any questions or comments?
You muted again.
I think you're muted, so you'd have to unmute to talk to us.
I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you. So what's the thought process on this? Consider it, make a consideration to move it forward. Now, if we make consideration to move it forward, then it goes to public hearing, and at that time, we're saying yes or no, or do we want to get more information, to have more time to digest it?
I've got to have a presentation from finances before I can consider it. I need to know how this is going to affect the cash flow. I mean, that's just critical to me, and I think that needs to be done at our next meeting.
So we can have finance bring back a presentation kind of showing, at full ask, at, 3/4 of the ask, whatever that is. And then based on that, y'all can decide if you want to call a public hearing for January.
Okay, so put it back on consideration for next meeting.
Purview of the board, yeah. We can do it that way.
That would be my desire.
Well, the consensus seems to be that everyone is interested in looking at the project. getting more information and wanting to consider moving forward on it once enough information has been ascertained, which would seem to say that we're not ready to go to a public hearing next month. If that's the case, then do we need to motion to table this item? Or what do we need to do legally if that's how everyone is feeling?
Whatever y'all are comfortable with. I mean, I think staff recognizes the consensus, and we'll just put it on the agenda kind of in a similar form to what it is tonight, and you all can consider it. We know the questions that, and Michael said we'll be prepared to do, some of that financial information.
And Mary, not to put you on the spot, would you be willing to provide your contact information to staff to be able to forward that to the board for questions? And also, the questions I've heard so far are cash flow. What does that look like? And are there any other specific questions for staff to address now? And if not, once you go through the numbers, I would assume we want to email staff so that we can get clarification for the presentation at next month's meeting.
Yeah, we'll make sure that y'all have a chance to digest that, turn any questions you have back to us, and then we can present that at the next meeting.
That'd be helpful, and again, I would like to see it on a couple of different scenarios: full funding, partial funding, stage funding. So just however creative you guys can get on that, give us some options.
We know we threw a lot at you today as well.
Little.
Yeah, yes sir, we can do that.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Is everyone okay with that, or so you want to make a different motion? Good about that. Staff recognizes that?
Yes, ma'am, we got it.
Okay. So what that means is it will be on our next agenda with an opportunity to get some clarification, dive through the numbers, talk to staff and/or Mary about the project.
And how would we hear from Kyle? Because I really am interested in hearing from him. Would that be at the meeting, or is that something?
I think that would need to be, well, I mean, we cannot, I mean, if you were to contact Kyle, then you could talk to Kyle. I would hope Kyle will talk to all of us, but if Kyle were to be approached by more than 2 people, then he would have to not talk to anyone at that point. So you just have to jump in line first.
But he could also be on the agenda for next time.
Well, as the comments from Go Team, yeah, I would specifically want to hear what the Go Team, how they came to, where they what they were thinking, and
He'll be here at the meeting next time. So
okay, no
he'll be
more,
on the dais.
no
You
more,
can ask him all the
no more
questions you want.
emergencies. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, y'all don't have any more emergencies, please.
Yeah, okay. All right.
When is the next meeting?
It is the second week in December. It's usually the 3rd Monday, but it's the 2nd, moved up for the holidays.
12th,
Yeah.
11th? The 11th.
The 11th of January?
The 11th of December.
December. All right. Thank you. Appreciate everybody being here. It's been a marathon. We have executive session, and there's no contemplated action coming out of executive session, but if you want to stay around and take us out to eat afterwards, that would be fine. Otherwise, we will understand if you want to leave at this time.
Where are you? Where have you been?
Do we need to go to executive session? I think he has some.
We discussed everything on there.
Okay. You feel like? Okay, all right. So we're on red, and we didn't really motion to go into executive session.